Chapter 1446. Wishing Crocodile and Jiang Luoluo could feel how strong Lin Tian's golden sword essence was. It could almost kill anyone under the Eternal Realm. But now, when this fierce sword essence hit the edge of the strange continent, it caused a black bounded domain barrier to emerge and directly melted the fierce sword essence. The scene was a little scary. When we were pulled to this continent by that strange force, we didn't feel any bounded domain barrier. How come now? Wishing Crocodile frowned. It blocks the inside but not the outside. Haven't we seen this kind of bounded domain barrier before? Lin Tian Andao. There were many bounded domains between heaven and earth. Some prevented creatures from stepping in from the outside, but were not affected when they went out from the inside. Some prevented creatures from moving in from the outside, but were also prevented from moving in from the inside. Others only prevented creatures from moving out from the inside, but were not affected when they went in from the outside. Obviously, the bounded domain here only prevented creatures from moving out from the inside, but were not restricted when they went in from the outside. Then, what should we do now? How do we leave? Wishing Crocodile asked. Looking at Lin Tian's expression, they could not break this bounded domain with brute force. I don't know for the time being, Lin Tian said. If we just rely on brute force, with our current cultivation, even if we join forces, we won't be able to break through it and leave. Now, we can only walk around the continent, observe and measure this continent, and find a way to break it. Originally, the divine chain around Jiang Luoluo's neck was very extraordinary. It was very amazing in breaking bounded domains. It had an extraordinary magical effect because it was mixed with the aura of the sword soul of the divine sword in his sea of consciousness. However, when he returned to the 10 directions heavenly domain from the Xian star, the aura of the sword soul in the divine chain disappeared. It seemed that it was absorbed by the divine sword in his sea of consciousness. So now, this divine chain could no longer be used to break the bounded domain here. Now, if they wanted to break the bounded domain barrier outside this continent, they could only choose to walk around the continent and observe every corner to find clues to break the bounded domain here. This might not be useful in the end because they could not find a way to break it. But if they just stayed here and did nothing, it was even more impossible to get out of here. Let's go to the continent. Wishing Crocodile tilted his head and looked at the continent. I always feel that this place is not very good. I can see it. Lin Tian Andao. They had been pulled to this island by that strange force. At this time, they were at the edge of this continent. Looking at the continent from here, they could see strands of black fog intertwining. Broken stone tablets stood in many places, and the soil was dark red as if it had been soaked in blood. There were many strange black and red plants growing on the ground, but most of them were withered. Leaves were scattered on the ground sparsely. The entire continent gave off a creepy feeling. Let's go. Lin Tian Andao. Just standing at the edge of the continent would not solve any problems. Now, they had to go to the continent to explore. At the same time, he was not in a hurry to be pulled into the continent by the majestic force. After all, they had not encountered any danger yet. There was no need to be anxious. Moreover, being anxious would not help them solve the problem. Immediately, they walked towards the continent. This continent was very shocking. It was even bigger than some stars. Walking on it, the ground was a little moist. The withered leaves on the ground would occasionally sizzle, and a moldy smell spread out. Lin Tian stepped forward. Strands of dragon patterns spread out from the soles of his feet and sank into the ground to explore the terrain. Soon an hour passed. They were very far away from the edge of the continent and gradually moved towards the center of the continent. Kid, did you see anything? Wishing Crocodile asked. Lin Tian shook his head. No. No? Aren't you an authority to look at the ground? It's been an hour, but you can't see anything? Correction, I'm not an authority to look at the ground. Those who look at the ground are called tomb seers. I'm cultivating the dragon burial scripture. I control the layout of the earth and the general trend of the world. They're on different levels. Aren't they the same? They're all related to the earth. Are you asking for a beating? Lin Tian wanted to beat it up. Whooshing Crocodile rolled its eyes and looked around. Jiang Luoluo followed Lin Tian cautiously. Little Taichu was lying on Lin Tian's shoulder leisurely. In the blink of an eye, another hour passed. They walked further away. The amount of vegetation around them was obviously much less. The ground was more moist, and there was a strong medicinal fragrance. This medicinal fragrance. Lin Tian was moved, and a glimmer of light flashed across his eyes. At this time, the medicinal fragrance in the air was incomparably strong. It was even more amazing than the five-colored phoenix plant he obtained on the Xian ancient planet. Moreover, this medicinal fragrance was not just a single one. It was a mixture of dozens of different medicinal fragrances. Each of them was amazing. Whooshing Crocodile was shocked. This rundown place looks eerie. How can there be such an amazing medicinal fragrance? Beside him, Jiang Luoluo was also very surprised. Let's go and take a look. He called out to Whooshing Crocodile and Jiang Luoluo, and they went in the direction of the medicinal fragrance. He had read many ancient books. In this mixed medicinal fragrance, there were a few medicinal fragrances that were very similar to very precious natural treasures recorded in an ancient book. They were even more valuable than the five-colored phoenix plant he obtained on the Xian ancient planet. Soon, he led Whooshing Crocodile and Jiang Luoluo across tens of thousands of feet. At this time, the medicinal fragrance in the air became even stronger. A medicinal garden appeared in front of them. It was about a few thousand square meters. Inside, ancient and immortal herbs were laid out horizontally. They were intertwined with spots of light, and emitted a strong medicinal fragrance. There's such a medicinal garden here? Jiang Luoluo was shocked. Flowing grass, a super divine medicine for refining one's body. Thousand spirit flower, refined by a heavenly venerable. Only 3 stalks are needed to raise one's cultivation by a small level. Immortal star root, born from starlight, is a rare treasure for Empyrean realm masters. It can strengthen one's divine soul, sea of consciousness, and origin. It can also raise one's cultivation. Also, Emperor Snow, black glass grass, resurrection flower. Whooshing Crocodile's eyes widened. Lin Tian was also shocked. Not only was he shocked by the fact that there was such a medicinal garden on such a eerie continent, but he was also shocked by the various rare treasures in the medicinal garden. In this medicinal garden, he saw too many precious divine medicines. Among them, there was even the black and yellow treasure lotus, which could directly raise one's cultivation after being refined by an immortal realm master. All of them are harvested! Whooshing Crocodile howled. Seeing such a divine medicinal garden, he was excited and almost drooled. He rushed forward directly. Lin Tian's eyes were shining. He also stepped forward to the medicinal garden in front of him. But in the next moment, his heart suddenly shook as he noticed a withered corpse at the corner of the medicinal garden. The corpse's sunken eyes were staring fixedly at them, and they were faintly suffused with a gloomy green light. Instantly, it caused his back to go cold as a feeling of terror arose in his heart, and his scalp couldn't help but go numb. Come back! Chapter 1447. After being pulled back by Lin Tian, the Whooshing Crocodile was puzzled. Kid, what are you doing? Look over there. Lin Tian now pointed at the dried corpse in the corner of the herb garden. The Whooshing Crocodile looked in the direction Lin Tian pointed and naturally saw the dried ancient corpse in an instant. At first glance, it didn't feel anything, but in the next moment, it felt a chill run down its spine and an inexplicable tremor rose in its heart. Is this a pure dried corpse, or has it mutated? Jiang Luoluo's heart also palpitated. She felt that this dried corpse was not ordinary. The dried corpse's eyes stared straight at them, and it felt as if they were being stared at by the soul-reaping emissaries of hell. No matter how I look at it, it doesn't look like a pure dried corpse. Lin Tian now looked at the dried corpse and his eyes narrowed slightly. How could a corpse that could make him feel a chill run down his spine and a sense of danger be a pure dried corpse? It had 100% turned into a great evil. Almost at the instant he finished speaking, A light sound came from the front. It sounded like the sound of a person waking up from a deep sleep. The dried corpse suddenly moved. Its sunken pupils were suffused with a green light. The corpse stood up in a deformed manner, and its head was tilted unnaturally. In an instant, an extremely dense aura of death spread out. It stared at Lin Tian and the others and directly pounced on them. The icy cold aura of death rolled like a vast ocean. The temperature in this place dropped by more than 100 degrees in an instant, causing the group of people to tremble and their internal organs to become cold. "This old corpse is really not a pure dried corpse." The whooshing crocodile trembled violently. It was shocked by the aura of death. It was really too dense, as if the king of hell had come. That kind of aura was appalling. It was a little scared. Fortunately, Lin Tian pulled it back in time. Otherwise, it would have been in great trouble if the dried corpse suddenly pounced on it after rushing into the herb garden. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out. It only took an instant for the corpse to pounce over. Its speed was so fast that it was frightening. It let out a low roar, and its withered arms grabbed at several people at the same time. The yin qi of death rolled like a fog, covering all directions. A gust of sinister energy directly locked down the space. The whooshing crocodile trembled again. It was frightened by the ferocious aura of the withered corpse, and the scales on its body stood up. Jianluoluo's face turned pale. This withered corpse was too terrifying. It was as if a true immortal had come to kill them. Lin Tian raised his hand and punched the corpse's big hand. In the blink of an eye, his fist collided with the corpse's arm. He felt as if he had punched a piece of immortal divine iron. His fist immediately went numb, and the web between his thumb and forefinger was about to crack. The old corpse roared, and sharp black claws grew out of its withered hands. Its pair of sunken eyes glowed with green light. It was gloomy and frightening. It grabbed at several people like an emperor evil god. Lin Tian felt that this withered corpse was very scary before it moved. At this time, with a head-on collision, this feeling became even clearer. He waved the Chaos Emperor fist and performed it with his Immortal Realm cultivation base. He punched out one punch after another to meet the old corpse. Bang! 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 The void rang loudly. He punched dozens of times in a row. He felt a burst of pain in his fist, and then a little bit of blood floated out. The web between the thumb and forefinger of his right hand was shattered. Whooshing Crocodile was shocked. It knew what kind of physique Lin Tian had. It was the strongest king physique. With Lin Tian's current Immortal Realm cultivation base, the strength of his body was almost no worse than that of an early-stage Eternal Realm expert. But now, his body was injured after colliding with the withered corpse in front of him. It was shocked. This old corpse was too terrifying. Roar! The old corpse roared, its pupils deep green. Its corpse was clearly extremely withered like firewood, as if it would break apart with a light touch. However, in reality, it was extremely terrifying. Its entire body was like a great sword of death, shattering expanse after expanse of the void. Lin Tian waved the Chaos Emperor fist and felt the horror of this old corpse more and more. The other party's corpse body was shockingly strong. Moreover, the death aura outside its body was very shocking. It was as if there was a sea of death wrapped around its body. He punched again and again. Then black and white lotus petals flew out of his body, intertwining with the rich power of yin and yang. In the blink of an eye, they turned into yin and yang lotus swords. They made a sonorous sound and slashed at the withered corpse. This was the vision of his sea of consciousness, which had a strong restraining power against evil ghosts. At this time, he directly cast it out and combined it with his Chaos Emperor fist to bombard the withered corpse. The power of yin and yang kept falling on the withered corpse. However, this time, the yin and yang lotus sea, which had a strong restraining power against evil ghosts, was not very useful against the withered corpse in front of him. The effect was very weak, almost negligible. Is my cultivation base not enough? He muttered to himself. Roar! The withered corpse roared, and the death aura outside its body became even more terrifying. Lin Tian used the Chaos Emperor Fist and the Yin and Yang Lotus Sea to bombard the withered corpse. After a pause, the Yin and Yang Lotus Sea and the Fist Force were put away at the same time. He then turned to the 5 heaven-shaking thunders technique. Boom! Thunder roared, and in an instant, silver lightning flashed. It was extremely overbearing, dyeing the space in this place silver for a short time. In an instant, a large amount of silver lightning fell on the chest of the withered corpse. This time, the withered corpse trembled and was sent flying. Wisps of green smoke rose from the corpse's body. A light flashed in Lin Tian's eyes. The 5 heaven-shaking thunders technique could greatly restrain this powerful withered corpse. Lightning flashed in his eyes, and with a slight change of his mind, another large amount of silver lightning fell and enveloped the withered corpse. With a boom, the lightning flashed, and the withered corpse was sent flying again. More green smoke rose from the corpse, and a scream was heard. It was like 2 pieces of glass rubbing against each other, which was very ear-piercing. It works! Lin Tian's eyes lit up. The 5 heaven-shaking thunders technique was very effective against the withered corpse. It was much more effective than the Yin and Yang Lotus Sea. Then he thought for a while and felt that it was very normal. He should have known that the 5 heaven-shaking thunders technique could greatly restrain the withered corpse. After all, there were clear records in the ancient books that evil spirits were most afraid of lightning. The 5 heaven-shaking thunders technique that he cultivated was not an ordinary lightning technique. It was deduced by a peerless existence from the heavenly tribulation. It was extremely overbearing and strong. It was very normal for it to be more effective against evil spirits than the Yin and Yang Lotus Sea. He activated the nirvana of the sun, and the cracked web between his thumb and forefinger was instantly repaired. Then, he took a step toward the withered corpse that was sent flying. At this moment, silver lightning surrounded his body. The electric arcs crackled as if a god of thunder had descended. Bang! He waved his hand, and a large amount of silver lightning flashed across the sky. Once again, the withered corpse was sent flying, and another ear-piercing scream was heard. It was unusually mournful. This kid has mastered the great way of thunder? No, it's not the great way of thunder. This kind of lightning. Whooshing Crocodile looked at the silver lightning outside Lin Tian's body and widened his eyes. Why do I feel that there is the aura of the heavenly tribulation? Looking at Lin Tian at this moment, and the silver lightning surrounding Lin Tian's body, Whooshing Crocodile was shocked. It was not only because he felt the overbearing power of the silver lightning, but also because he could vaguely feel the aura of the heavenly tribulation in it. He obtained a lightning technique from the Xian ancient star. Only he can cultivate it. It is said that it was deduced from the heavenly tribulation, Jiang Luoluo said. Deduced from the heavenly tribulation? Whooshing Crocodile was shocked. Someone had deduced a lightning technique from the heavenly tribulation? Roar! The withered corpse roared, and the death chi surged. It was extremely horrified, and its sunken eyes shone with a gloomy light as it stared at Lin Tian. Lin Tian coldly snorted. He could clearly feel that the withered corpse was even more terrifying than before. However, he was not afraid. He circulated his 5 heaven-shaking lightning art even faster. Thunderous sounds rang out as dense silver lightning continuously struck down. Facing this tyrannical silver lightning, the withered corpse waved its claws. However, in the blink of an eye, it was struck again. Once again, it let out a miserable shriek. Numerous pitch-black lightning seals appeared on its sturdy corpse, while green smoke continuously rose from them. Lin Tian stepped forward, and the silver lightning struck down, restraining the withered corpse, and sent it flying again and again. This, Whooshing Crocodile stared. The terrifying evil corpse was like a genuine immortal expert, but at this moment, it was suppressed by Lin Tian. This lightning technique is really terrifying, Jiang Luoluo gasped. Yeah. The little Taichu flew out from Lin Tian's shoulder when Lin Tian first fought against the withered corpse. At this moment, it looked ahead and saw Lin Tian firmly suppressing the tyrannical withered corpse. It waved its little paws and cheered for Lin Tian. Boom! The thunder roared, and it was incomparably domineering. The silver lightning streaked across the sky, almost drowning the entire place. Lin Tian stepped forward, and like an invincible thunder god, he waved the 5 thunder sky-shaking art, and sent the withered corpse flying again and again. The withered corpse let out a mournful cry like a wolf's howl. Its body was about to fall apart, and in its sunken eyes there was a look of fear. Staring at Lin Tian, its corpse trembled violently, and then like an ape, it jumped high and rushed into the distance, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Its speed was extremely fast. It escaped? The wishing crocodile widened its eyes. Such a powerful withered corpse with dancing energy and frightening ferocity. But at this moment, Lin Tian beat it into fleeing in fear. That lightning technique has an absolute restraining effect on it. It can't use its strength, and if it doesn't escape, it can only be destroyed, Jiang Luoluo said. Her eyesight was extraordinary. In front, Lin Tian's body was intertwined with silver lightning. Seeing the withered corpse disappear from his sight, he didn't chase after it. The opponent's escape didn't affect him much, so there was no need to chase after it. Kid, your lightning technique is too domineering. The wishing crocodile flew over, its eyes full of shock. The lightning technique Lin Tian used just now was too powerful. Those silver lightning bolts were extremely domineering, and even that terrifying evil corpse fled in fear. It looked at Lin Tian and said, "This lightning technique, is it really deduced from heavenly tribulation?" Just now, it had heard Jiang Luoluo mention that Lin Tian's lightning technique was heavenly tribulation, but at this moment, it couldn't help but ask. This statement was really a bit frightening. In the history of cultivation, there was actually someone who could deduce a lightning technique from heavenly tribulation. Yes. Lin Tian nodded. When Jiang Luoluo mentioned that Lin Tian's lightning technique was deduced from heavenly tribulation, and when Lin Tian nodded in affirmation, the whooshing crocodile became even more shocked. Then, it thought of something else that Jiang Luoluo mentioned just now, and asked, "This lightning technique, is it really only you can cultivate?" Lin Tian nodded and confirmed it again, which made the whooshing crocodile even more shocked. "Okay, don't be shocked, let's pick the herbs first," he said. The whooshing crocodile was originally shocked by Lin Tian's lightning technique, but at this moment, when it heard Lin Tian mention the word herb picking, its energy was instantly lifted. It tilted its head and looked at the herb garden not far away, and its demonic eyes immediately lit up. Immediately, the group stepped forward and went directly to the herb garden. In the herb garden, the medicinal fragrance was rich, and various treasured herbs intertwined with a faint glow. They didn't say anything unnecessary and began to pick the treasured herbs intertwined with immortal light. Thousand Spirit Flower, Emperor's Snowstalk, Black Glazed Grass. With them, Lord Crocodile and Jiang Yua can probably reach 8th stage Heavenly Master. The wishing crocodile was excited. There are also a few immortal star flowers. After the little guy refines them, he can directly step into middle stage Emperor realm. There is also the black-yellow treasure lotus. Kid Lin, after you refine it, you should be able to directly step into middle stage immortal realm. Lin Tian took the black-yellow treasure lotus in his hand, and his eyes lit up. After all, the value of this black-yellow treasure lotus was very amazing. If he refined it, he could directly improve his cultivation by a small level, from the current early stage immortal realm to middle stage immortal realm. Soon, he, whooshing crocodile, and the others picked all the treasured herbs in the garden. Speaking of which, it's a bit strange. How can there be such a herb garden with so many rare treasures on such a ghastly continent floating in the starry sky? This herb garden seems to be man-made, right? Jiang Luoluo had a strange expression. Chapter 1448. Lin Tian was actually a little curious about the doubts raised by Jiang Luoluo. This medicinal garden occupied an area of thousands of square meters, and there were many rare and precious medicines growing. It did seem to be man-made. However, this was a little strange. How could there be such a man-made medicinal garden on such a gloomy and strange continent? Moreover, there were so many precious medicines growing? He scanned the surroundings, trying to find some clues, but he couldn't find anything. In the end, he could only shake his head and not think about it. Ignore it. Let's find a more hidden place and refine these precious medicines first, he said. Hearing his words, Wishing Crocodile nodded repeatedly. Grandpa Crocodile thinks so too. At this time, they had obtained such a group of rare and precious medicines in this place. As long as they refined them, their cultivation would increase greatly. At this moment, it naturally couldn't wait to refine these precious medicines and advance to a higher level. Let's go. Lin Tian Andao. He scanned the surroundings and left with little Tai Chu, Wishing Crocodile, and Jiang Luoluo. They came to an empty place. You guys refine the precious medicines in your hands first. I'll protect you guys. When you're done, you can protect me, he said. At the same time, Soul Light intertwined in his right hand. He set up more than 10 sealing formations in this place in succession. They completely covered the space within a radius of 1,000 feet to conceal their auras. Okay, let's do that, Wishing Crocodile said. Lin Tian immediately protected Wishing Crocodile, Jiang Luoluo, and Little Tai Chu. Wishing Crocodile and Jiang Luoluo refined the 1,000 Spirit Flower, Emperor Snow Plant, and Xianli Grass that could increase the cultivation of heavenly venerables from the medicinal garden. Little Taichu refined the Immortal Star Flower that could increase the cultivation of Emperor-level powerhouses. For a time, there was a very strong light intertwining outside their bodies. Their essence, chi, and spirit increased greatly. Just like that, half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Half a month later, Little Taichu, Wishing Crocodile, and Jiang Luoluo had finished refining their respective precious medicines. Wishing Crocodile and Jiang Luoluo had reached level 8 Heavenly Venerable Realm, and Little Taichu had reached Mid-Emperor Realm. Compared to half a month ago, their blood and chi had increased by many times. Awesome! Wishing Crocodile could not help but howl. In just half a month, it had advanced from a 6th stage Heavenly Venerate to an 8th stage Heavenly Venerate. It's hard to imagine that I've gone from the airborne realm to the 8th level of Celestial Lord in just a few years. It's like a dream. Jiang Luoluo clenched her fists, her beautiful eyes sparkling. After that, she happily thanked Lin Tianao, because the reason why her cultivation was able to reach this level in such a short period of time was all because of Lin Tian's various treasures. If it wasn't for Lin Tian, she definitely wouldn't have been able to achieve this in such a short period of time. You're welcome. We're friends. This is nothing. Lin Tian smiled and said. But didn't your clan have very strict requirements? Now that you've piled up treasures to reach level 8 Heavenly Venerate, won't you get scolded when you go back? These treasures were given to me by you. I didn't rely on the resources of my clan, so they can't do anything about it, Jiang Luoluo said. Lin Tian now said, Well, that's true. As he said that, he looked at Little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile. Now, it's your turn to protect me. Keep an eye on the surroundings. I'll refine the black gold lotus. Little Taichu, Wishing Crocodile, and Jiang Luoluo had all finished refining their respective treasures. At this time, he was ready to refine and absorb the black gold lotus. Don't worry, Wishing Crocodile said. Lin Tian nodded and immediately sat down cross-legged, taking out the black gold lotus and starting to refine it. Buzz! He ran the Heart Sutra of Sun and absorbed the spiritual chi and essence chi in the black gold lotus. His essence, chi, spirit, and cultivation improved rapidly. Very quickly, a full month had passed, and he had finally finished refining the black-yellow treasured lotus. A majestic force rippled out from his body, blowing away all the dried leaves that were scattered on the ground around him. Middle stage Immortal Realm. He opened his eyes. 2 rays of light flashed in his eyes. After refining the black gold lotus in a month, his cultivation had advanced from early stage Immortal Realm to middle stage Immortal Realm. His essence, chi, and spirit had improved greatly. His blood chi, physique, divine soul, and principle were many times stronger than they were a month ago. Compared to a month ago, he could clearly feel that his combat strength had improved a lot. He took a deep breath and then stood up. "Let's go," he said, calling little Taichu, Wishing Crocodile, and Jiang to leave and find a way to leave this strange continent. This continent was huge. He used the dragon marks to explore the surroundings. Soon, he led Jiang and the others far away. The soil was still damp, and there were withered leaves everywhere on the ground. Not long after, another medicinal garden suddenly appeared in front of them. It was many times larger than the previous medicinal garden, and there were also many precious medicines growing inside, but they had all withered. The few of them walked closer and sized up the newly discovered stalks of withered treasured medicines in the medicinal garden, and all of them revealed shocked expressions. Geocentric chestnut fruit, a divine herb to strengthen the origin. It is a treasure even for Eternal Realm experts. Myriad purple treasure ginseng can condense and strengthen the genuine immortal chi. Red sky 9 phoenix flower can strengthen the Tao and strengthen the soul. It is very useful for golden immortals. Poria 9 senses grass can broaden the sea of consciousness. It is effective even for Xian immortals. Wishing Crocodile was shocked. There are so many precious treasures here? The worst of the precious herbs in this herb garden were more precious than the black and yellow treasure lotus in the previous herb garden. Any one of them was enough to shock the world. It was very shocked. While it was shocked, it could not help but feel a little annoyed. All the precious herbs had withered, and their essence chi was gone. They were completely useless. This is... Jiang Luo was also shocked. Even someone as powerful as Lin Tian, who had experienced all sorts of things since he started cultivating and had an extremely firm mental state, could not help but be stunned at this moment. The various treasures in this medicinal garden were just too precious, and their value was shocking. In this place, the medicinal garden was more than 10,000 square meters. As the group walked around, they saw one stalk of rare and precious medicine after another. Each stalk had extraordinary value, but they were all withered, and many had even rotted. What a sin! Wishing Crocodile howled. It found so many precious herbs, but they had all withered and lost their value. It felt very uncomfortable. It wasn't just him. Even Lin Tian felt a bit of heartache. The value of these precious medicines was truly too shocking. He estimated that if all of these precious medicines were in good condition and refined, he would be able to directly charge into the true immortal realm. "Forget it, let's go," he said. This herb garden was very shocking. However, the precious herbs in it were all spoiled. There was no need for them to stay here. He led a few people out of here and continued to explore this continent with the dragon pattern. They moved towards the center of the continent, and found several more herb gardens one after another. Each one was bigger than the previous one. The precious herbs in it were more amazing than the previous one. In one of the herb gardens that covered an area of nearly 100,000 square meters, there was a exquisite myriad immortals grass. It was a super treasure even for a celestial immortal expert. After refining it, it could directly increase one's cultivation level in the celestial immortal realm. However, this exquisite myriad immortals grass had withered and decayed, and all kinds of precious herbs in the other herb gardens had also withered. None of them could be used. The essence contained in them had long been lost, and they were no different from withered grass. #yen%#. Wishing Crocodile's face was filled with grief and indignation. These precious herbs together were enough to support their cultivation to the celestial immortal realm, but now they were all withered. "Stop howling. No matter how loud you howl, they won't come back to life." Lin Tian glanced at it and said, "Lord Crocodile is unwilling. Such a big pile of divine herbs turned into withered grass. It's useless even if you're unwilling." Lin Tian now. Beside him, Jiang Luo said, "These medicinal gardens clearly look like they were created by someone. The value of the precious medicines growing in them is shocking. Could it be that there was once an extremely shocking inheritance of a great power on this continent?" Lin Tian frowned and said, "The possibility is very high. All the major forces and sects in the world would have their own herb gardens, which were specially used to cultivate all kinds of precious medicines for the sections. The immortal court he established was one of them. Now, there were 9 herb gardens in the immortal court, in which there were all kinds of precious medicines. There were specific experts of the immortal court who took care of them. Of course, the various precious herbs in the immortal court's herb gardens were incomparable to the precious herbs in the herb gardens in this place. The difference between the two was huge. He inferred that Jianluoluo's guess was indeed very likely. Perhaps there was once a great force on this continent, and the herb gardens that they found on this continent belonged to that great force. But if that's the case, then how powerful was the great force inheritance that was established on this continent? Based on the fact that the herb garden on this continent had the exquisite myriad immortals grass that could directly increase the cultivation base of a heaven immortal expert, there should be at least a heaven immortal expert guarding the inheritance. How did such a powerful inheritance end up like this? Looking at the scene in front of us, that inheritance is clearly destroyed, Wishing Crocodile said. The annoyance caused by the withering of many precious herbs gradually subsided at this time. That I don't know. Lin Tian shook his head. He thought for a while, and could only guess the situation. Then, he continued to explore this strange continent with the dragon marks. After that, 3 hours passed quickly. They walked on foot and gradually approached the center of this continent. At this time, a piece of dilapidated ancient palace suddenly appeared in front of them. They were all intertwined with the aura of time. It was unknown how many years it had existed. It could be measured with the unit of 100,000 years, at least. It looks like the ruins of a great power. Wishing Crocodile was visibly moved, and his gaze descended onto the piece of dilapidated ancient palace. Could it be that a formidable inheritance really existed on this continent? I told you, the possibility is extremely high. Lin Tian now. Chapter 1449. In the middle of the dilapidated palaces, there was a large hall that was several hundred feet tall. It was unknown what material it was made of, but it was covered with cracks, and the aura of time was very strong. Lin Tian looked at this large hall, and a ray of light flashed across his eyes. In this large hall, he sensed an aura that was very similar to the barrier at the edge of the continent. Let's go to the large hall in the center. He called out to Wishing Crocodile and Jianluoluo. Wishing Crocodile's expression changed slightly. Did you find something? Lin Tian nodded and said, There is an aura that is very similar to the barrier at the edge of the continent. There should be clues to break through the barrier. Wishing Crocodile and the others heard this, and their eyes lit up. Let's go in and take a look, Wishing Crocodile said. Immediately, the few of them walked forward and quickly arrived in front of the large hall in the center. When they came close to the large hall, the temperature in the air became even colder, and there was a stifling aura intertwined in the surroundings. The few of them could see that this large hall was not a good place, but they did not hesitate and directly stepped into it. After all, they were not weak, so naturally they were bold. Most importantly, there were clues leading to their departure from this continent in this grand hall. They had to enter and search for it. The space in the large hall was a little dim, but it was incomparably vast. It did not feel like a simple large hall at all, but more like a small world. The inside of the hall extended in all directions, leading to various positions in the large hall. An aura similar to the barrier at the edge of the continent came from the depths of this large hall like water ripples. Lin Tian called out to Little Taichu, Wishing Crocodile, and Jianluoluo, and directly walked into the depths. De Bie! De Bie! De Bie! The space in the hall was very quiet. As they walked, the sound of their footsteps echoed in this space. Lin Tian walked at the very front. His pace was neither fast nor slow as he followed a fixed path towards the depths of the palace. Soon they had walked far away. Many cracks gradually appeared on the walls of the palace. There were many knife marks and sword marks in many corners. Gradually, they found some bone dust and weapon fragments on the ground. It was obvious that a fierce battle had taken place here. Most importantly, the bone dust and weapon fragments contained very weak immortal Tao laws. The people who fought here back then were at least true immortals. Wishing Crocodile was a little surprised. Lin Tian was also moved, but he didn't pay too much attention to it and continued to head deeper into the hall. Not long after, he brought little Tai Chu, Wishing Crocodile, and Jiang Luoluo along with him. They followed the aura similar to the barrier at the edge of the continent and arrived in front of a huge stone room. Looking around, the stone door of the stone room was open. The space inside was very large, and there was blood everywhere. No one knew how long it had been there, but it didn't dry up and was full of the smell of blood. In the center of the stone room, an old man in a black robe had his chest pierced through by a cracked spear. His body was shriveled, and there was no trace of life. The other end of the spear was held in the hand of a human-shaped skeleton. It looked like the human-shaped skeleton had burned all of its flesh and blood at the last moment of its life to pierce the spear into the body of the black-robed old man. These two people fought to the death here, and in the end they died together? Several people were moved. The scene in front of them was a little horrifying. Lin Tian's gaze moved and fell on the other hand of the human-shaped skeleton holding the spear. It held a blue ancient token in its hand. The aura similar to the barrier at the edge of the continent came from this blue ancient token. At the same time, Wishing Crocodile, Little Taichu, and Jiang Luoluo naturally discovered this ancient token. They sensed that the ancient token emitted the same aura as the barrier at the edge of the continent, and their eyes lit up. If we get it, we can definitely pass through the barrier at the edge of the continent. Wishing Crocodile's eyes lit up. Without hesitation, several people, led by Lin Tian, directly entered the stone room and headed for the ancient token. In the stone room, the human-shaped skeleton held the spear, and the black-robed old man's chest had been pierced through. Their bodies emitted a very frightening aura. When several people entered the stone room, they were immediately oppressed by this aura, and their bones hurt. What realm were these two people in when they were alive? The aura naturally emitted by their corpses is actually so terrifying. Also, the blood in this stone room should belong to these two people. After so many years, it hasn't dried up yet, and there's a very strong smell of blood floating in the air. This is simply... Wishing Crocodile's heart palpitated. Lin Tian was also shocked, but at this time, he didn't say anything. He slowly walked forward in the stone room, and soon, together with Wishing Crocodile, Little Taichu, and Jiang Luoluo, came to the black-robed old man and the human-shaped skeleton at the center of the stone room. When they came here, the pressure in the air was even greater. It was as if there was a starry sky here, and it was going to crush them directly. Lin Tian looked at the human-shaped skeleton holding the battle spear. He carefully took the blue ancient badge from the skeleton's other hand. This ancient token was only the size of a palm, and there was an ancient, yuan, character engraved in the center. He didn't know what kind of metal it was forged from, but it was abnormally heavy. Holding it, Lin Tian felt as if he was dragging a 10,000-foot-tall mountain. I got it! Wishing Crocodile's eyes flashed. Looking at the ancient token at close range, it felt the aura similar to the barrier at the edge of the continent become stronger. It believed that with this ancient token, they would be able to pass through the barrier and leave this place. Then, it looked at the spear that pierced through the black-robed old man's body, and said to Lin Tiandao, "Boy, this is also a good thing. It's a great treasure. Pull it out and take it away." Lin Tian naturally felt that this spear was extraordinary. Although it was covered in cracks, as if it would break at the slightest touch, it still exuded a very fierce, murderous aura. It was much more tyrannical than the Xian Luo immortal sword he obtained from the Xian star. It seemed as if it could really pierce through all things in the world. It was difficult for him to estimate its level in a short time. He didn't hesitate, and raised his hand to grab the spear, wanting to take it away. Wang! Suddenly, a strange sound rang out, as if billions of birds were flapping their wings. The aura was terrifying. A divine sense suddenly rushed out from the black-robed old man's body, shooting straight towards Lin Tian's head. It also enveloped the Wishing Crocodile, Jiang Luoluo, and the little Taishu behind him. Lin Tian's expression changed. He immediately retreated and propped up the immortal Emperor Pagoda to protect himself. At the same time, it also enveloped the Wishing Crocodile, the little Taichu, and Jiang Luoluo. Clang! A violent sound rang out. The divine sense landed on the immortal Emperor Pagoda, causing it to shake violently. It was as if it had been hit by billions of pounds of force. Lin Tian and the others were sent flying along with the immortal Emperor Pagoda. They slammed into the stone wall of the stone room. Their blood and chi surged, and they all almost vomited blood. Fortunately, the immortal Emperor Pagoda was sturdy enough. It was made from the primordial heavenly crystal, the ultimate weapon-forging artifact. Otherwise, the immortal Emperor Pagoda would have been shattered by that strand of spiritual sense, and Lin Tian and the others would have suffered. In front of them, the black-robed old man who had been pierced by the spear had shriveled up beyond recognition. He was like a mummy. At this time, he opened his eyes. His eyes were frighteningly deep, and there was a faint aura of life intertwined. At the same time, the aura that naturally intertwined around his body became even more terrifying. He's alive? Whooshing Crocodile's heart palpitated. Lin Tian's expression also changed. When they entered this stone room, they did not sense any aura of life at all. They thought that the black-robed old man was dead, just like the human-shaped skeleton with the spear. They did not expect that the black-robed old man who had been pierced by the spear was still alive. He was pierced by the spear and was in a state of suspended animation. Because we approached him with our aura, he woke up? He was moved. The black-robed old man opened his eyes. His eyes were deep and cold. He stared at the blue ancient token in Lin Tian's right hand. Then, he looked at the immortal Emperor Pagoda that Lin Tian had summoned. His deep eyes became even more frightening. Another strand of consciousness flew out. This time, it was aimed at Lin Tian. Obviously, he wanted to seize the ancient token in Lin Tian's hand and the immortal Emperor Pagoda that Lin Tian had summoned. Facing this strand of consciousness, Lin Tianji felt a chill run down his spine. He could clearly feel the terror of this strand of consciousness. He immediately activated the immortal Emperor Pagoda with the Sun Heart Sutra. The immortal Emperor Pagoda glowed with purple light, firmly protecting him and Whooshing Crocodile. In the blink of an eye, the black-robed old man's strand of consciousness slammed into the immortal Emperor Pagoda. Lin Tian and the others were once again sent flying by the immortal Emperor Pagoda. They were all in pain. One! The space buzzed as the third strand of consciousness surged over. It was still aimed at Lin Tian, and its speed was extremely fast. In an instant, it was right in front of Lin Tian. It was as if a vast sea of deities was pressing down on him. Lin Tian could not avoid it. He immediately activated the Great Tao Reincarnation Diagram and met it together with the immortal Emperor Pagoda forged from primordial heavenly crystals. Boom! The stone chamber rumbled and exploded with blazing rays of light. With a bang, Lin Tian was once again sent flying along with the pagoda. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood essence. The little Taichu, Whooshing Crocodile, and Jiang Luoluo, who were protected by him within the pagoda, were also sent flying along with him. Their blood essence was in turmoil. What level of cultivation is this old fart at? It looks like he already has 1 foot in the coffin. His spiritual essence and divine energy should not even be at 1/10,000th of his peak. Yet he is still so terrifying. Whooshing Crocodile's heart palpitated. Lin Tian looked at the black-robed old man with a serious expression. At this moment, he could naturally see how terrifying this black-robed old man was. "Let's go," he said in a low voice. He wrapped the little Taichu, Whooshing Crocodile, and Jiang Luoluo with the immortal Emperor Pagoda and stepped out of the stone chamber. This black-robed old man was unfathomable. Even if they combined forces, they would not be a match for him. They did not have the leisure to retrieve the battle spear. At this moment, the wisest choice was to take advantage of the fact that the other party had just awakened and his battle strength was still unstable to leave quickly. Otherwise, if they continued to linger in this place, they might all die here. Chapter 1450. Lin Tian was very fast. With little Taichu, Whooshing Crocodile, and Jiang Luoluo, he rushed out of the stone room like a flash of lightning. At the center of the stone room, the black-robed old man's body was shriveled, and his pupils were slightly sunken. However, his gaze was deep and cold. Another wisp of divine sense spread out, and as it fell on Lin Tian, it directly sealed the surrounding space. Lin Tian's eyes were intertwined with wisps of light. With a thought, the Xian Luo celestial sword, a true immortal weapon, rushed out of his body. He used it to display a great sword principle theurgy from the high heaven sword scripture, and in an instant, he slashed out a dazzling golden sword essence. Clang! The sound of the sword was ear-piercing. The high heaven sword essence, which was displayed by a true immortal weapon, was astonishingly powerful. In the blink of an eye, it collided with the black-robed old man's divine sense. A blazing light burst out in the stone room, and a hurricane swept out. Lin Tian was sent flying. However, as he used a true immortal weapon to counter the opponent's divine sense, and at the same time, he used the immortal Emperor Pagoda to protect himself. This time, he did not suffer a great shock. His essence, qi, and spirit were very calm, and his situation was much better than before. He used the immortal Emperor Pagoda to protect himself, and wrapped Wishing Crocodile and the others. He used the recoil force from the collision with the opponent's divine sense to move. He activated the 5 heaven-shaking thunders incantation on the spot. This peerless thunder technique, coupled with the Xian Luo celestial sword scripture and the high heaven sword scripture, slashed open a crack in the space that was sealed by the opponent. He wrapped Wishing Crocodile and the others and rushed out of the stone room. "Stay!" the black-robed old man said in a hoarse and cold voice. 3 wisps of divine sense swept out in succession, drowning Lin Tian. "No need to send me off." Lin Tian Andao. The 5 heaven-shaking thunders incantation was activated. At this moment, he also displayed the 9th level of the yin and yang steps. His speed instantly soared, and in an instant, he crossed an endless distance, dodging the black-robed old man's 3 wisps of divine sense. Then, in the next moment, he left the stone room far behind him. Inside the stone room, the black-robed old man's eyes were deep and cold. He stared coldly at Lin Tian as he left, but he didn't chase after him. He didn't move at all. At the spot where the battle spear had pierced through his chest, the blood had already stopped flowing. However, at this moment, new blood was spreading out. "It's all mine!" A cold voice reverberated through the stone chamber. Lin Tian used the immortal Emperor Pagoda to protect himself and Wishing Crocodile as they left the stone chamber. At this point, they were already very far away. "That old bastard didn't chase after us?" Wishing Crocodile stared behind him. "It seems that he's being suppressed by that battle spear and can't move for the time being. The range of his soul consciousness seems to be limited," Jiang Luoluo said. "Luoluo is right." Lin Tian now. When they were in the stone room, the black-robed old man had attacked him several times with his soul consciousness as a weapon. He hadn't moved at all. At that time, Lin Tian now had sensed that the old man's essence, qi, and spirit were weak and unstable. He was temporarily restrained by the battle spear that had pierced his body. Moreover, he couldn't use much of his soul consciousness, and the range of his coverage was very limited. As he spoke, he didn't stop walking. He used the 5 heaven-shaking thunders incantation and the 9th tier of the yin and yang steps to quickly rush out of the main hall. Looking from the outside, the main hall was covered in cracks. The surrounding air was especially stifling. The terrifying black-robed old man didn't chase after them. He was completely left in the stone room of the main hall. "He didn't chase after us. It seems that he's being suppressed by that battle spear for the time being." Wishing Crocodile stared into the main hall. His heart palpitated, and he couldn't help but tremble. "That old bastard is really terrifying. He's so badly injured, and his life force is so weak that it's almost negligible, but he's still so terrifying. If he's at his peak, he could probably even destroy the stars in the starry sky. Terrifying!" Jiang Luoluo swallowed her saliva. Even the emperor-level little Taichu shrunk its neck. Lin Tian could naturally imagine how terrifying the black-robed old man was at his peak. However, he didn't care at this time. After all, they all walked out of the stone room unscathed. "Let's go," he said, and put away the immortal Emperor Pagoda and Xian Luo immortal sword at the same time. Then, he left the main hall and walked towards the edge of the continent. Now that he had obtained the ancient token that had the same aura as the boundary barrier at the edge of the continent, he felt that he could walk out with this ancient token. "Let's go, let's go!" Whooshing Crocodile replied. It wasn't surprised that Lin Tian took out the Xian Luo immortal sword and the immortal Emperor Pagoda made of primordial heavenly crystals. This was because it knew about the existence of the immortal Emperor Pagoda and Xian Luo immortal sword when it was still in the immortal court 3 years ago. Little Taichu was the same. It wasn't surprised at all. As for Jian Luoluo, she had seen Lin Tian take out the immortal Emperor Pagoda before Little Taichu and Whooshing Crocodile. She knew where the Xian Luo immortal sword came from. Therefore, she naturally wouldn't be surprised that Lin Tian took out the immortal Emperor Pagoda and Xian Luo immortal sword. The few of them moved very quickly. It didn't take long for them to reach the edge of the continent. Looking out from the edge, they could see beautiful stars. Lin Tian took out the blue ancient token that he had obtained from the stone room. He took a deep breath and held the ancient token in his right hand. Then, he stretched his arm out towards the edge of the continent. In the blink of an eye, his arm touched the boundary barrier that appeared at the edge of the continent. Chi! The boundary barrier that his right hand touched melted on the spot, revealing a huge gap. His right hand directly passed through it. "It really works!" The 5-element crocodile's eyes lit up. Although he had guessed that holding this ancient token would definitely allow him to pass through the barrier at the periphery of the continent, when he saw Lin Tian holding this ancient token and his right hand passing through the barrier at the edge of the continent, he could not help but be pleasantly surprised. Jiang Luoluo's eyes also lit up. She said, "Then, let's leave this place quickly. If that black-robed old monster suddenly breaks free from the battle spear and chases after us, we'll all be finished." Lin Tian nodded. Holding the blue ancient token, he enveloped Little Taichu, Whooshing Crocodile, and Jiang Luoluo. Then, the ancient token shattered the boundary barrier around the continent like ice. He took them and stepped out of the continent in the blink of an eye. "We're finally out." Whooshing Crocodile exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. After stepping out of the continent, Lin Tian stood in the starry sky and looked up. The continent was floating like a huge battleship in the starry sky. It was drifting into the distance, getting further and further away from them. Then he paused. His gaze retracted from the continent that was drifting into the distance, and looked at the blue ancient token in his hand. The ancient token was only the size of a palm. It was blue, and the word Yuan on it was very eye-catching. Chapter 1451. The barrier that enveloped that continent was formed because of that ancient token. This is very obvious. After all, the ancient token has the same aura as that barrier, and it can easily break through that barrier. Just these 2 points alone are enough to explain a lot of things. Lin Tian nodded in agreement with Whooshing Crocodile's conjecture. However, it shouldn't be the blue ancient token that evolved on its own. It should have been condensed by someone using it. Someone? Jiang Luoluo thought for a moment and said, "Was it the human-shaped skeleton in the stone room who used the ancient token to condense the barrier when he was alive?" Lin Tian nodded. Obviously it was him. But why would he condense such a barrier? After enveloping the entire continent, it only restricts the creatures inside from stepping out, but doesn't restrict the creatures outside from entering. This seems a little strange," Whooshing Crocodile said. "There's no doubt that there was a super inheritance on that continent in the past. The human-shaped skeleton in the stone room may have been the core figure of this inheritance when he was alive. According to the situation of the large number of cultivators fighting in the hall that we entered, this inheritance should have been attacked by other experts. The human-shaped skeleton condensed that barrier with the ancient token when he was alive, perhaps to prevent any enemy from escaping," Lin Tian now said. "Of course, this is just a guess. I can't say for sure what the specific situation is. Although it's just a guess, it's very likely." Whooshing Crocodile shook its head and said, Forget it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make any difference to us whether we figure it out or not. The key is still this ancient token. It looked at the blue ancient token in Lin Tian's hand and said, "Even that terrifying black-robed old man wanted to seize this thing. It must be a great treasure. Boy, try it and see what kind of power it has." Hearing this, Jiang Luoluo and little Taichu's eyes also fell on the ancient token in Lin Tian's hand. Obviously, they were very interested in this ancient token. Lin Tian was naturally very interested in this ancient token. He immediately tried to activate it with his divine power. However, the ancient token did not have any reaction. After he activated his divine power and poured it into the ancient token, it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Then, he activated his divine thought to explore it, but found nothing. After his divine thought entered the ancient token, it was pitch black inside and he could not sense anything. He briefly explained the situation, which surprised Wishing Crocodile and the others. Then, Wishing Crocodile and Jiang Luoluo took the ancient token and activated their divine power, and used their divine thought to explore it. Little Taichu also took it and fiddled with it. However, the result was the same as Lin Tian's. "We guessed that the enchantment outside the continent was formed by the human-shaped skeleton activating this ancient token when he was alive. This should be correct. Since the human-shaped skeleton was able to activate the enchantment when he was alive, why didn't it have any reaction when we activated it now?" Wishing Crocodile was puzzled. Lin Tian thought for a moment and said, "Perhaps it's because our cultivation isn't high enough to make this ancient token react, or perhaps a special method is needed to activate it, and we don't know the method." "Well, that should be the case," Wishing Crocodile said. "No matter what, this ancient token is definitely a great treasure. It's priceless. Although we can't activate it now, we will definitely be able to in the future." Lin Tian nodded in agreement, and then kept the ancient token in his body. The starry sky was still dark and there were many stars everywhere. At this time, the strange continent had already disappeared. "Let's go. Let's continue our journey to the ancient Tongheng star," he said. On the way to the ancient Tongheng star, they were caught by the strange continent. The time they spent on the continent was not short. At this time, they had already deviated from their original direction. However, this did not affect them much. Jiang Luoluo remembered the coordinates of the ancient Tongheng star. No matter where they were now, they would eventually reach the origin of life on the ancient Tongheng star as long as they followed the coordinates. Then, he called Wishing Crocodile, Jiang Luoluo and little Taichu to follow the coordinates of the ancient Tongheng star and move in a fixed direction. Soon 2.5 years had passed. On this day, the few of them stopped in the starry sky. There was an incomparably huge star in front of them. Compared to the other stars around it, it was like a giant elephant and an ant. It was surrounded by other stars like a moon surrounded by stars. It was like a crane among chickens. "We're here! This is the ancient Tongheng star!" Jiang Luoluo's eyes lit up with excitement. This was her hometown. Back then, she was teleported from the ancient Tongheng star field to the ancient Xian star field because she stepped on a teleportation formation. Lin Tian looked at Jiang Luoluo and naturally understood how Jiang Luoluo felt. When he returned after leaving the 10 Heavens domain, it was almost the same. "Let's go." Without any hesitation, he called Wishing Crocodile, Jiang Luoluo and little Taichu to descend towards the ancient Tongheng star. After about 10 breaths of time, they penetrated the natural barrier that shrouded the ancient star and appeared inside the ancient star. As far as the eye could see, this was a vast and boundless world with towering celestial mountains and ancient peaks. The turbulent currents were turbulent, and the spirit chi in the air was extremely dense. It was even denser than the Xian ancient star. "Amazing!" Wishing Crocodile was shocked. This was the first macro world that it had entered after leaving the 10 Heavens domain. At this time, looking at this macro world, its pupils could not help but shrink. This world was too vast and amazing. No matter what, it was far beyond the 10 Heavens domain. Lin Tian looked at this world and was not surprised. After all, he had been to the origin of life in the ancient Xian star. That world was not much worse than this one. At this time, he glanced at this world. Traces of light appeared in his eyes. This was because there was a sword soul fragment in this world. That thing was very important to him. He spent 5.5 years to come to this world. The main purpose was to get that sword soul fragment. I'm finally back. Stepping on this land again, Jiang Luoluo was more excited than when she looked at the ancient Tongheng star in the starry sky. Her eyes were brighter. Then she took a deep breath and put away her excitement and joy. She thanked Lin Tiandao and said, I'll take you to the ancient land where the 7-colored divine light is. She knew that Lin Tian came to the ancient Tongheng star for 2 reasons. One was to send her back. The other was for the 7-colored divine light. He was very concerned about it. Lin Tianyi smiled and said, Don't worry. You've been away from home for 10 years. You'll be back after 10 years. Go home and have a look. Chapter 1452. Lin Tian knew that Jiang Luoluo was very grateful to him, and could not wait to help him obtain the sword soul fragment in this ancient planet. However, he also knew that Jiang Luoluo, who had been away from home for more than 10 years, missed her family very much. Jiang Luoluo's family should be worried about Jiang Luoluo all the time. Therefore, after more than 10 years, he sent Jiang Luoluo back to this land again. He felt that it was better for Jiang Luoluo to go home first. Go home first and let your great-grandfather, parents, and other elders feel at ease. This is filial piety. Filial piety is the most important thing in this world. He looked at Jiang Luoluo and smiled. Moreover, you must miss them very much. Jiang Luoluo had a lively personality, and was not a pretentious person. Lin Tian's words of filial piety is the most important thing in the world moved her greatly. Adding on the fact that she really did miss her family, she nodded in agreement. Yes, thank you. Then I'll go home first, and then I'll immediately bring you to that ancient land to look for that 7-colored divine light, she said, feeling even more grateful to Lin Tian. This was because she knew that Lin Tian cared a lot about the 7-colored divine light in this world. However, at this time, Lin Tian did not immediately look for the 7-colored divine light after traveling thousands of miles and crossing the starry sky for 5.5 years to descend to this world. Instead of looking for that 7-colored divine light, he first considered her and asked her to go home first to see her family. This made her very touched. Let's go. I'll send you back, and then I'll look for that thing. Lin Tian andao. Jiang Luoluo immediately pointed the way. They walked along the east direction of this place. Along the way, they tore open the void several times to move. After more than 4 hours, they arrived near a boundless ocean. As far as the eye could see, the ocean was boundless, but on the surface, it was calm and peaceful. Not far from the ocean, there were many palaces, each of which was dazzling and majestic. We're here! This is my home! Jiang Luoluo seemed a little excited. She was very happy to be back after wandering outside for more than 10 years. Your home is really extraordinary! Wishing Crocodile couldn't help but stare at the palaces in front of him. Although it had heard that Jiang Luoluo's family was extraordinary, it couldn't help but be shocked when it saw the magnificent palaces in front of it with its own eyes. Lin Tian was very calm. From where he was, Jiang Luoluo's family was indeed very grand and imposing. However, it was only slightly stronger than the purple evolved god sect of the Ziyan planet. It wasn't enough to surprise him. With Jiang Luoluo leading the way, they soon arrived at the Jiang residence. Who are you? There is. Outside the Jiang family's residence, one of the Jiang family's disciples who were guarding the entrance came forward to inquire. The next moment, he was shocked when he saw Jiang Luoluo. Young lady. At the same time, the other guards also saw Jiang Luoluo, and they were all moved. Miss, you're finally back. Where have you been all these years? The patriarch, the elders, and the old ancestor are all worried sick. When they saw Jiang Luoluo, they were all pleasantly surprised. At the same time, someone shouted to the Jiang family, informing them that Jiang Luoluo was back. Jiang Luoluo said a few words to the Jiang family's disciples and then led Lin Tian, the wishing crocodile, and the little Taichu into the Jiang residence. The Jiang residence was rich in spiritual energy, and there were many kinds of immortal plants. As soon as Lin Tian and the others walked in, they heard the sound of something breaking through the air. A dozen figures quickly rushed out from the depths of the Jiang residence. The purple-robed old man in the lead had the most amazing momentum, which made Lin Tian's eyes flash with a faint light. The Eternal Peak, he said to himself. At the same time, he glanced at the other figures who rushed out with the purple-robed old man and found that their cultivation was not bad. The weakest one was at the middle stage of the immortal realm. Next to him, the wishing crocodile stared. This Jiang girl's family is really powerful. Obviously, he also saw how terrifying the dozen people who rushed out of the Jiang family were. Great-grandfather, father, great-ancestor. Jiang Luoluo greeted them happily. It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. Among the dozen people who came out from the depths of the Jiang residence, the purple-robed old man in the lead said. He was Jiang Luoluo's great-grandfather, and the great ancestor of this generation of the Jiang family. He was the most powerful person in this generation of the Jiang family. You sneaked out of the family and disappeared for more than 10 years. You made our family into a mess. Jiang Luoluo's father, the master of the Jiang family, reproached her, but everyone could hear the concern in his voice. Jiang Luoluo naturally heard the concern in the master of the Jiang family's words. She apologized in a low voice. Then, she introduced Lin Tian to the big shots of the Jiang family. Great-grandfather, father, and great-ancestors, it's all thanks to his help that I can come back safely. She pulled Lin Tian aside and quickly told him what had happened in these years. The dozen big shots of the Jiang family saw Lin Tian the moment they came out. However, at first, they were focused on Jiang Luoluo. At this time, when they heard Jiang Luoluo introduce Lin Tian and learned that Lin Tian had helped Jiang Luoluo in various ways, they were immediately moved. Thank you, little friend. The great ancestor of the Jiang family expressed his thanks. Even though his cultivation was much higher than Lin Tian's, he was still extremely polite. At the same time, the head of the Jiang family also stepped forward to express his gratitude. Thank you for your help. My daughter is naughty and mischievous. I've troubled you all these years. Seniors, you're too polite. We're friends, so it's only right that we help each other. There's no need for thanks, Lin Tian said with a smile. Facing the patriarch of the Jiang family, who was at the peak of the immortal realm, and the patriarch of the Jiang family, who was at the peak of the eternal realm, he seemed very casual. After all, he had seen people at this level before. You can't say that. You've helped Luoluo so much. How can we not thank you? The Jiang family's grand ancestor said. On this day, the Jiang family held a big banquet to celebrate Jiang Luoluo's return. It was also to thank Lin Tian and welcome Lin Tianyi and the others. The day passed in the blink of an eye. After that, Lin Tian stayed in the Jiang family for 3 days under the great hospitality of the great ancestor and the head of the Jiang family. 3 days later. On this day, he bid farewell to the great ancestor and the head of the Jiang family and prepared to leave. He had to search for the sword soul fragments that had fallen into this world. The great ancestor and the head of the Jiang family knew that Lin Tian had something important to do, so they did not continue to persuade him to stay. A group of big shots personally sent Lin Tian, wishing crocodile, and little Taichu out of the Jiang family. Little friend, after you're done, you can come to our family as a guest at any time. No matter when, the door of our family will always be open for you. If you need anything, just let us know. As long as the Jiang family can do it, we won't refuse. The great ancestor of the Jiang family said. He had always doted on Jiang Luoluo, a direct descendant of the Jiang family. Jiang Luoluo had gone missing more than 10 years ago, and the family had spent a lot of effort to find her, but to no avail. He had been worried sick all these years. Now that Lin Tian had sent Jiang Luoluo back, he learned from Jiang Luoluo that Lin Tian had helped Jiang Luoluo in various ways. He was very grateful to Lin Tian. The head of the Jiang family also spoke with a smile. He allowed Lin Tian to come to the Jiang family as a guest at any time. He was also very grateful to Lin Tian. Thank you for your hospitality, seniors. Lin Tian thanked them with a smile. At this moment, Jiang Luoluo, who was by Lin Tian's side, said to the Jiang family's patriarch and patriarch, "That great-grandfather, father, I will temporarily leave home for a period of time to accompany Lin Tian, Luoluo." Suddenly, a voice sounded from afar, interrupting Jiang Luoluo's words. A few hundred feet away, a handsome young man appeared, followed by 3 old men who looked like servants. In the blink of an eye, they arrived outside the Jiang family and stood in front of Jiang Luoluo, looking at her with a gentle gaze. Chapter 1453. The man was dressed in a blue robe. His spirit was extraordinary, and there was a faint emperor chi around him. The 3 elders behind him were even stronger. One of them was at the early stage of the emperor realm, while the other 2 were at the middle stage of the emperor realm. "Wu Si, you're here." The great ancestor of the Jiang family looked at the man with a faint smile on his face. He clearly knew this blue-robed man. The man's name was Wu Si. He looked gentle and elegant. He bowed to the great ancestor of the Jiang family, the master of the Jiang family, and the others, and said, "I heard that Luoluo had returned, so I immediately rushed over." As he spoke, he looked at Jiang Luoluo again. His gaze was very gentle, and anyone could see the adoration in his eyes. "Luoluo, are you all right?" "Yes, I'm fine. Thank you for your concern," Jiang Luoluo said. Lin Tian glanced at Jiang Luoluo. He realized that Jiang Luoluo did not seem to be interested in this man. Although her words were very polite, there was clearly a perfunctory feeling. However, he did not care much about this. He looked at the great ancestor of the Jiang family, and said goodbye again. He also said goodbye to Jiang Luoluo, and then walked away. "Ah?" Jiang Luoluo pulled Lin Tian. "Didn't we agree that I would go with you? Why are you saying goodbye to me? It's only been 3 days since you returned from wandering outside. It's better for you to stay at home and accompany your great-grandfather, father, and other elders. You don't have to go with me." Lin Tian now. He had already learned the exact location of the ancient land that contained the sword soul fragment from Jiang Luoluo. It did not matter if Jiang Luoluo followed him or not. In fact, if Jiang Luoluo did not follow him, he would act faster. After all, the place with the sword soul fragment was not a good place. If he encountered danger, he would have to protect Jiang Luoluo. As for the wishing crocodile and the little Tai Chu, they were different. They were stronger than Jiang Luoluo, and they were very experienced in various aspects. Moreover, they would follow him no matter what. Jiang Luoluo grabbed Lin Tian's hand. She was very quick-witted. She paused and said, "You don't like me." He felt that I would be a small burden if I went with him. Lin Tian couldn't help but smile. "Oh, you said it yourself?" "I didn't say that." One of them was glaring angrily, while the other had a faint smile on his face. They looked rather intimate. Wu Si's eyes glinted. He had seen Lin Tian when he first arrived, but he didn't pay much attention to him. It wasn't until he saw Jiang Luoluo holding Lin Tian's hand that he truly set his eyes on Lin Tian. "Luoluo, who is this?" He glanced at Lin Tianyi and asked Jiang Luoluo with a gentle smile on his face. "My friend," Jiang Luoluo said. Her words were simple, not saying much. Wu Si looked at Lin Tian and smiled amiably. He extended his right hand and said, "Hello, I'm Wu Si. Since you're Luoluo's friend, you're my friend too. Nice to meet you. Lin Tian." Lin Tian extended his hand and shook this person's hand. His words were as simple as Jiang Luoluo's. He felt that the smile on this person's face was a little fake. "Brother Lin, you have a dignified appearance. You're definitely not an ordinary person." Wu Si smiled. "Brother Wu, you flatter me." Lin Tian now. Although he felt that Wu Si's smile was a little fake, there was a saying after all. Don't hit a smiling person. Therefore, he naturally treated him calmly. After he finished speaking, he looked at the ancestor of the Jiang family, and the head of the Jiang family, and said goodbye again. He was ready to leave immediately. You really don't want me to come with you? Jiang Luoluo pulled him. Lin Tian smiled and said, You really don't have to come with me. It's better for you to stay in the family and accompany your family. Before I finish my business and leave, I'll come and disturb you again. At that time, if you're free, you can take me around this world. Then, well, remember what you said. Before you finish your business and leave, you must come and find me. I'll take you around this world. If you leave quietly after you finish your business, I'll go to your hometown to find you, Jiang Luoluo said. In fact, she also knew that she was not strong enough. Going to that ancient land with Lin Tian was really a small burden. At the same time, she also knew that Lin Tian was not from this world. After he found the mass of 7-colored divine light in this world, he would definitely leave this world. She thought that before Lin Tian left, she must do something to thank Lin Tian. Don't worry. Before I leave, I'll definitely come and find you again, Lin Tian said with a smile. After he finished speaking, he nodded to the ancestor of the Jiang family and the others. Then, he left with Wishing Crocodile and Little Tai Chu. Wu Si looked at Lin Tian's back as he left. An obscure light flickered in the depths of his eyes, but he still had a smile on his face. Ancestor seniors, I'll also take my leave. He bowed to the ancestor of the Jiang family and the head of the Jiang family. Don't you want to come in and have a seat? No, I'm relieved to see that Luoluo is safe and sound. Luoluo has been wandering outside for so many years. It must be very hard for her. Moreover, she must have a lot to talk to you seniors. I'll come and visit Luoluo later, Wu Si said. He looked at Jiang Luoluo with a gentle gaze and said goodbye to her. Then, he bowed to the ancestor of the Jiang family and left with his 3 servants. Lin Tian left the place where the Jiang family lived. At this time, he was already far away. He was heading to the south of the ancient star. He learned from Jiang Luoluo that in this world, the ancient land with the 7-colored divine light was located in the southern region of this world. It was called the Crimson Wilderness and covered a vast area. There were all kinds of strange monsters living in it. It was a natural training ground for this star. Usually, many cultivators would go to the wilderness to train themselves. However, although many people went to the wilderness to train themselves, most of the cultivators only dared to train at the edge of the wilderness. They did not dare to go to the depths of the wilderness. This was because there were very terrifying existences living in the depths of the wilderness. Only the Eternal Realm experts dared to set foot there. The 7-colored divine light was located in the deepest part of the Crimson Wilderness. It had been discovered by the experts on the ancient star for countless years. However, no one had been able to take it away, not even the experts of the Eternal Realm. How far is it from here to the Crimson Wilderness? Wishing Crocodile asked. It's not too far, Lin Tian said. Of course, if we fly, we'll be able to get there in roughly 4 hours. He did not tear the void to move. Instead, he walked naturally toward the Crimson Wilderness. Soon, he took Wishing Crocodile and Little Tai Chu far away. They went over a dozen mountains in a row. It was also at this time that he suddenly stopped in his tracks and glanced behind him. Come out! His voice was flat. Wishing Crocodile and Little Tai Chu were slightly moved when they heard this. They followed Lin Tian's gaze and looked behind them. A breeze blew in the air. After 3 breaths, the void distorted and an old man appeared from the void. It's you! The 5-element crocodile immediately narrowed his eyes and recognized this old man. Surprisingly, he was one of the 3 old servants that followed behind Wu Si. The old man who appeared from the void was wearing a gray robe. His cheeks were wrinkled, but his chi and blood were very vigorous. Good spiritual sense. He looked at Lin Tian and said in a hoarse voice. Wu Si asked you to come? What does he want? Lin Tian was very calm. He naturally remembered that this old man was one of the 3 old servants who followed Wu Si. Miss Jiang is a noble lady. Not everyone can get close to her. You've displeased the young master of my clan. the gray-robed old man said. He did not care that Lin Tian had discovered him hiding in the void and following him. He was calm. Lin Tian smiled when he heard this. He understood the purpose of the gray-robed old man's visit. Wu Si was jealous of him because he was with Jiang Luoluo. Therefore, he sent the gray-robed old man to kill him. That girl said that she has good eyesight and knows how to judge people. It's true. Well, she's good. He smiled and muttered to himself. Previously, when he was outside the Jiang family, he noticed that Jiang Luoluo did not like Wu Si and was perfunctory. Now, he finally understood the reason. Obviously, Jiang Luoluo knew that Wu Si was not a good person and did not want to have anything to do with him. However, because the Wu family and the Jiang family were both top forces connected to the Eternal Star and had been friends for generations, she had to deal with him on the surface. Otherwise, with Jiang Luoluo's straightforward personality, she would not have bothered with him. In fact, when he first met Wu Si, he did not like him. He felt that the smile on his face was fake and that he was a hypocrite. However, he did not expect him to be so sinister and ruthless. Just because he admired Jiang Luoluo, he wanted to kill him when he saw Lin Tian getting too close to Jiang Luoluo. Go back and tell him that Luoluo and I are just friends. There is no romantic relationship between us. Don't make enemies for yourself, he said to the gray-robed old man. Do you think that's possible? The gray-robed old man's expression was indifferent. He took a step towards Lin Tian. Faint waves of divine power appeared on the surface of his body, and his killing intent was not concealed at all. Young master means to make you disappear from this world. It doesn't matter if you and Miss Luoluo have any romantic relationship. What's important is that your existence has displeased young master. All right, Lin Tian said with a smile. However, do you think you can kill me? Are you sure you won't regret it? I am not talented, but I am at the level of Emperor Realm. I am enough to kill you. The gray-robed old man was very calm. He felt that since Lin Tian was friends with Jiang Luoluo, his cultivation should be about the same as Jiang Luoluo's. Jiang Luoluo's cultivation could not be compared to his, who was at the Emperor Realm. Then, it would be easy for him to kill Lin Tian. Beside Lin Tian, the wishing crocodile opened his mouth. He looked at the gray-robed old man as if he was watching a monkey performing a circus. Old man, to say such words in such a calm manner, are you deliberately here to tease us? Chapter 1454. Looking at the gray-robed elder, wishing crocodile only felt that the other party was very funny and weird. Even little Taichu could not help but stare at the gray-robed elder with its big watery eyes. It held its little belly and laughed in a very human-like way, making fun of the gray-robed elder. The gray-robed elder's face immediately darkened. He stared coldly at wishing crocodile and little Taichu and said, After I kill him, it will be your turn, you two bastards. Faint divine light intertwined around his body. He raised his hand and slapped toward Lin Tian. Suddenly, the void shook and a large part of it was shattered. The scene was terrifying. Lin Tian had a faint smile on his face. He stretched out a finger and easily blocked the gray-robed elder's murderous palm print. You! The gray-robed elder's expression changed immediately. He did not show any mercy in this slap. He had used his full strength, wanting to kill Lin Tian in a single strike before killing the 5 elements crocodile and little grand primordium. However, he never thought that Lin Tian would actually be able to block his full-strength strike so easily with a single finger. Now, do you still think that you can kill me with your emperor-level cultivation? Lin Tian now. As he spoke, a wisp of immortal-level pressure spread out. The gray-robed elder's expression changed again, and he trembled violently. You! His eyes were filled with shock and fear. He did not expect Lin Tian to be in the immortal realm. Immortal realm. The person he came to kill was in the immortal realm. With a buzzing sound, he retracted the palm print and turned around to escape without hesitation. Lin Tian smiled. His mid-level immortal-level divine power shook and froze the surrounding space. With a bang, the gray-robed elder who was escaping was knocked back. Little brother, spare my life! Don't kill me! The gray-robed elder trembled. He no longer had the calmness and composure he had at the beginning. His eyes were filled with fear. Lin Tian's expression did not change. I gave you a chance to live at the beginning, but you did not cherish it. The gray-robed elder trembled. I pooh! Lin Tian pointed a finger and pierced right through this person's forehead, crushing the soul in his mind. All that was left was an intact flesh shell. This old man is really... Wishing Crocodile laughed, then asked Lin Tian. Speaking of which, why did you leave his flesh shell behind? For you to cultivate. Use the Saint Refinement Precious technique to refine and strengthen yourself. Lin Tian now. Saint Artifact Refining Technique? Wishing Crocodile frowned. That technique seems to be something only you humans can practice, right? Back in the sealed dust ancient region, when Lin Tian first found the Saint Refinement Treasure technique, he had given it to the demon beast to cultivate. Unfortunately, the demon beast was unable to cultivate it. That level of technique was only suitable for humans. Demon beast cultivators were unable to cultivate it. Now it's possible. I've improved this technique a few years after coming here from the 10 Directions Heaven domain. Now, both humans and monsters can practice it. You and the little guy can control it. Lin Tian now. Hearing his words, Wishing Crocodile suddenly showed a surprised and pleasantly surprised expression. Really? I'm not lying to you. It knew how powerful this Saint Refinement Treasure technique was. If it could control it, it was bound to make rapid progress on the path of cultivation in the future. When have I ever lied to you? Lin Tian now stretched out his hand and pointed a finger. A wisp of divine sense rushed into Wishing Crocodile's mind. It was the Saint Refinement Treasure technique that he had modified over the years. At the same time, he also pointed a finger at little Taichu and imparted the modified Saint Refinement Treasure technique to it. In the future, as long as there was a suitable expert's flesh shell, by relying on this technique, whether it was him, Wishing Crocodile, or little Taichu, their cultivation would be able to advance by leaps and bounds. Wishing Crocodile closed its eyes and carefully felt the modified Saint Refinement Treasure technique that Lin Tian passed into its mind. Then, its eyes brightened. It's really possible! Just by slightly comprehending the revised Saint Refining Treasure technique that Lin Tian had inserted into its sea of consciousness, it knew that it would definitely be able to cultivate this technique now. If I say it's possible, then it's possible, Lin Tian now said. Find a place nearby and refine this flesh shell first. Then, we'll go to the barren wilderness. The gray-robed old man was at the early stage of Emperor Void. The flesh and blood essence contained in the flesh shell was only effective for Wishing Crocodile among the three of them. This was because Wishing Crocodile was still at the heavenly venerable level, which was below the early stage of Emperor Void. As for him and little Taichu, one was at the middle stage of Immortal Void, and the other was at the middle stage of Emperor Void. They had both surpassed the early stage of Emperor Void. Since they had surpassed this level, refining the flesh shell of a cultivator at this level was naturally useless. At that moment, he probed with his divine thought and found a relatively secret place nearby. He casually set up 9 sealing formations and then let Wishing Crocodile begin to refine the gray-robed old man's flesh shell with the modified Saint Refinement Treasure technique that he had refined. Master Crocodile is starting! Wishing Crocodile roared and operated the Saint Refinement Treasure technique that Lin Tian had modified. The process was very smooth. It began to absorb the flesh and blood essence in the gray-robed old man's flesh shell strand by strand, and its own essence, chi, and spirit rose rapidly. Soon 3 days passed. The gray-robed old man's flesh shell dried up and shattered. On the opposite side, Wishing Crocodile's body surged with vigorous energy. Its cultivation rose from the 8th stage Heavenly Venerable level to the peak 9th stage Heavenly Venerable level. Its essence, chi, and spirit had increased substantially. It's really a success! It was very excited. It was not until dozens of breaths later that it calmed down a little, but its eyes were still very bright. Stop howling! Look at your useless appearance! Lin Tian squinted at it. Wishing Crocodile rolled its eyes, paused, and said, Boy, that little bastard called Wu Si, what should we do with him? Just because Lin Tian and Jiang Luoluo were close, Wu Si sent someone to kill Lin Tian. When facing Lin Tian head-on, Wu Si had a gentle smile on his face. This really made Wishing Crocodile feel a little disgusted, and it was quite unhappy. He's just a clown. I'm too lazy to look for him. After that, it's fine if we don't meet him. If we meet him, just kill him, Lin Tian said calmly. Wu Si's Wu family, along with the Jiang family, the Zhou family, the Sky Severing sect, and the Tongheng Immortal sect, were the top inheritances of the Tongheng Ancient Star. They were very strong, and Wu Si's status in the Wu family was also very high. However, he did not care at all. Now, he had his own things to do, and he was too lazy to take the initiative to look for the other party. However, if they met again by chance, he would not show mercy. It did not matter how high the other party's status in the Wu family was. If they met again, there was only one word for it: kill. Lord Crocodile thinks so too. Wishing Crocodile bared its teeth. All right, let's go to the Crimson Wilderness. Lin Tian now. Little Taichu lay on his shoulder. At this time, he called out to Wishing Crocodile and left this place. They continued to head to the south of this world, where the Crimson Wilderness was located. In the depths of this world, there was a sword soul fragment. Tongheng Ancient Star, Wu family. Wu family was located in a group of immortal mountains. There were groups of majestic halls, and the family was surrounded by dense spiritual energy. Young master, the person who went to kill the young man called Lin Tian has his soul lamp extinguished. He is dead. In a hall, an old servant reported to Wu Si, who was dressed in a blue robe. Wu Si's face darkened. The person he sent to kill Lin Tian was at the early stage of Emperor Void Realm. How could he fail? Could it be that Lin Tian's cultivation exceeded the early stage of Emperor Void Realm? The first kill failed. He already knows that I'm behind the person who killed him. Therefore, I can't let him live. He raised his hand slightly, and a seal flew out from his body, exuding wisps of eternal weapon pressure. Before he sees Luoluo again, kill him. Yes, young master. The old servant took the seal and disappeared into the hall in a flash. Lin Tian, Wishing Crocodile, and Little Taishu flew in the air, leaving the hidden place where Wishing Crocodile broke through to stage 9 Heavenly Venerable. They were not fast, but they were not slow either. They headed south. In the blink of an eye, for hours passed. At this moment, an incomparably vast wasteland appeared in front of them. They did not know how wide it was, and they could not see the end of it at a glance. We're here, Lin Tian muttered to himself, and a faint light flashed across his eyes. This was the Crimson Wasteland that Jiang Luoluo mentioned contained the Sword Soul Fragment. Arriving here, he did not hesitate. He called out to Wishing Crocodile and Little Taichu, and they directly approached and stepped into the wasteland. As far as the eye could see, there were many ancient trees in the great wasteland, but most of them were withered, which was quite fitting for the word, wasteland. There were roars of beasts and birds intertwined in the great wasteland, and there were also the roars of human cultivators echoing in the air. Many people here were fighting against powerful demonic beasts in order to improve their strength and improve themselves. Poof! In the distance, a great Tao-level beast was beheaded, and blood splattered in all directions. Ah! In another location, a human cultivator screamed miserably as he was swallowed into the stomach of a giant Wuxian-level pangolin. Coming here to train, some people killed beasts one after another to improve their combat strength. Naturally, there were also people who met with misfortune here and died in the bellies of the beasts, becoming food for the beasts here. Lin Tian was not interested in the training of these cultivators in this place. He walked straight into the depths of the wasteland. Boom! A Wuxian-level beast swooped down from the sky. Its claws were as sharp as swords, and it clawed at Lin Tian's head. Lin Tian did not even bother to look at it. His pace did not change as he continued to walk into the depths of the wasteland. Little thing, go to the side. Wishing Crocodile glanced at the beast that swooped down. The body of the ferocious bird that pounced over was enormous, and its wingspan was over 100 feet. When it met the five-element alligator's gaze, it immediately trembled and forcefully stopped its swooping momentum. A wave of fear arose from its instinct, and it directly turned around and fled into the distance. After all, it and Wishing Crocodile were both demons. It could clearly feel the terrifying demonic aura that naturally intertwined around Wishing Crocodile's body. If it attacked, it could easily crush it. If it did not escape, only death awaited it. Lin Tian did not care about it and continued walking. In the blink of an eye, for hours passed. He brought Wishing Crocodile and little Taichu to the center of the wasteland. Help! Chapter 1455. The green-robed man was in a sorry state. He was at the Nirvana realm, but the fierce ape chasing him was comparable to an Emperor realm expert. Its demonic aura was very strong. "Save me!" he shouted. Naturally, he saw Lin Tianyi and the others. As he staggered to escape, he looked back from time to time. "Roar!" the fierce ape roared, and the demonic aura was shocking. "Help!" the man shouted again. Lin Tian came here with the Wishing Crocodile and little Taichu. When he saw this scene, he naturally wouldn't stand by and watch. He drew a sword aura forward, and with a bang, the fierce ape chasing the man was sent flying. It couldn't get up for a long time. "Thank you! Thank you!" The green-robed man ran to Lin Tian and thanked Lin Tian now while panting. His face was a little pale, and there were many injuries on his body. As he panted, there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. This was because Lin Tian didn't look very old, but he was able to easily send the fierce ape that was comparable to an Emperor rank expert flying. His strength was truly quite tyrannical. "It's okay. It's nothing." Lin Tian now said that he didn't need to be so polite. The green-robed man thanked him again, and then said, "Well, my name is Jiang Yichuan. Can I stay with you for a while?" Like many cultivators, he also came to the wasteland to train. With his Nirvana realm cultivation, he gradually left the edge of the wasteland, which was the safest place. Then, he was swept by a strange wind to the area behind the center of the wasteland. There were too many evil creatures and ferocious beasts in this area. With his Nirvana realm cultivation, it was simply not enough. When he encountered danger several times and tried to escape, there were also groups of ferocious beasts blocking his way. He was no match for them, so he was directly trapped in this area. At this time, he saw Lin Tianyi and the others and saw how strong Lin Tian was, so he wanted to stay with Lin Tianyi temporarily. Together with Lin Tianyi, he felt that he would definitely be able to get out safely. Lin Tian was a little hesitant. He wanted to go to the depths of the sword's soul fragment, and didn't want to bring Jiang Yichuan with him. After all, this person's cultivation was too low. If he really brought him along, he might become a burden later on. "Please!" Jiang Yichuan looked at Lin Tian and spoke again. His eyes were filled with hope and pleading. Lin Tian sighed slightly and nodded. "All right." Jiang Yichuan was delighted. "Thank you. Many thanks." Lin Tian waved his hand and continued to walk deeper into the forest. Soon, he was far away from the central region. During this process, many terrifying ferocious birds and beasts pounced over. However, they were all easily killed by Lin Tian. Moreover, along the way, Lin Tian found a lot of precious herbs and strange fruits. Although they weren't very precious and weren't of much use to him, the Wishing Crocodile, and the little Taichu, they were still valuable. He took most of them and gave the rest to Jiang Yichuan. This made Jiang Yichuan very surprised. After all, Jiang Yichuan's cultivation was only in the Nirvana realm. These things were nothing to Lin Tianyi and the others, but to Jiang Yichuan, who was in the Nirvana realm, they were undoubtedly treasures and divine treasures. However, gradually, Jiang Yichuan's expression changed. He found that Lin Tian was going deeper and deeper into the wasteland. Are you going to go deeper into the wasteland?" he asked. Lin Tian nodded and said yes. After his guess was confirmed, Jiang Yichuan turned pale with fright and said anxiously, It's said that the depths of the wasteland are full of terrifying monsters. You can't go there. You're courting death if you go there. Previously, he saw that Lin Tian was very powerful and thought that if he followed Lin Tian, he would be able to get out of the wasteland safely. However, he didn't expect that Lin Tian was going to go deeper into the wasteland. That area was the most dangerous place in the wasteland. Only the masters of the Eternal Realm dared to set foot there. Lin Tian was going there. Do you know how to talk? What do you mean by courting death? Are you cursing us? Wishing Crocodile was a little dissatisfied. Lin Tian was very calm. He said, If you are afraid and have concerns, you can separate here. You don't have to follow us. With that, he continued to walk deeper into the wasteland without changing his pace. Wishing Crocodile and the little Taichu followed him on his left and right. They went deeper into the wasteland together. Each one looked at the direction where Lin Tian and the others were heading. He was a little flustered and scared, but in the end, he gritted his teeth and followed them. That was because he was now far away from the center of the wasteland with Lin Tian and the others. If he separated from Lin Tian and the others at this time and acted alone, he would be in great danger. He wouldn't be able to fend off the terrifying ferocious beasts in this area. If he encountered any one of them, he would die tragically. However, if he continued to follow Lin Tian and follow Lin Tian into the depths of the wasteland, although it would be very dangerous, he wouldn't necessarily die. At least, he had a higher chance of survival than if he acted alone. Therefore, after weighing the two options, he could only continue to follow Lin Tian. Lin Tian saw that Jiang Yichuan continued to follow him and didn't say anything. He didn't change his pace at all. Very quickly, an entire 6 hours had passed. More than 6 hours later, the sky became dark. Stars twinkled in the sky, and night covered the earth. In this wasteland, the roars of the ferocious beasts were even more harsh than during the day. That was because the ferocious beasts were most active at night. It was also at this time that Lin Tian led Wishing Crocodile and the others to the depths of the wasteland. In his sea of consciousness, the divine sword trembled slightly. Strands of rainbow-colored light swayed out and spread into the depths of his sea of consciousness. It's not far from this position. A faint light flashed through Lin Tian's eyes. He had already known from Jiang Luoluo that there was a mass of rainbow-colored divine light in the depths of the wasteland. He had already confirmed that the mass of rainbow-colored divine light was the sword's soul fragment. However, when he came here at this time, the divine sword in his sea of consciousness had a strange reaction, indicating that there was a sword soul fragment in this area. He couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Roar! In the depths of the wasteland, the ferocious beasts roared and the demonic aura rolled. The moonlight sprinkled on this land, covering the wasteland with a layer of faint silver light. Not far away, there was a ghost tiger covered in bone spikes walking. It wasn't fast, but its aura was very shocking. It was at the immortal level. At the same time, a ferocious bird streaked across the sky in the northwest direction. Its wingspan was at least 1,000 feet. It was also intertwined with the pressure of a peak immortal expert, causing the void to distort inch by inch. Then, it shattered with a series of cracking sounds. In the southeast, a dark flame centipede was at the immortal level. Its whole body was intertwined with Yin light. Its pupils were blood red. Further away, there were all kinds of ferocious beasts. There were winged giant ants, red-haired giant rhinoceroses, and immortal level yakshas facing the sky and swallowing the origin energy of the stars. Their auras were very terrifying. This, Jian Yichuan's heart trembled. He actually followed Lin Tian and the others to the depths of the wasteland. Looking at the terrifying ferocious beasts in this area, he felt that the air they exhaled from their nostrils was enough to crush him. Hide your aura! Don't let them find you! Lin Tian said in a low voice. The immortal level ferocious beasts in this place were nothing to him now. With his current battle strength, he could even kill a half-step eternal level expert easily. The reason why he was so cautious at this moment was that he vaguely felt the demon aura of the eternal level in this area, and there was more than one. If 1 or 2 eternal level ferocious beasts were attracted because of the fight with the immortal level demonic beast here, it would be troublesome. He suppressed his aura to the lowest level and moved carefully in this area, avoiding the tyrannical ferocious beasts. Soon 2 hours passed. At this time, he led Whooshing Crocodile and the others through the depths of the wasteland. After a short distance, they avoided the terrifying ferocious beasts and came to a place a few hundred meters away from a small valley. In the small valley, a fist-sized 7-colored divine light floated up and down. It emitted rays of 7-colored light, causing the nearby great Tao to surrender. Everything was suppressed. Found it! Lin Tian's eyes immediately lit up. He stared straight at the 7-colored divine light floating up and down in the small valley. There was no doubt that this was another sword soul fragment. Whooshing Crocodile showed a surprised expression. This place really has such a 7-colored divine light? Before coming here, it had already found out the purpose of coming here from Lin Tian. It knew that there was a 7-colored divine light here. However, when it saw it now, it could not help but be a little surprised. This was because it clearly knew that the 7-colored divine light was extraordinary. Just how many of these things are there? When it was in the 10 Directions heavenly territory, it had seen Lin Tian obtain several identical 7-colored divine lights. Now that it saw another one, it was both surprised and puzzled. At the same time, Jiang Yichuan's expression also changed. His eyes could not stop flickering. This is the legendary divine light of the immortal path in the barren wasteland? The divine object that even experts of the eternal realm dream of obtaining? Since ancient times, there had been a rumor in the ancient star that there was a special 7-colored divine light in the depths of the barren wasteland. It contained infinite possibilities and was called the first divine treasure of the ancient star. Several eternal realm experts of the top superpowers had gone there to obtain it. They even brought genuine immortal weapons, but they all failed. The 7-colored divine light in the depths of the barren wasteland repelled everything and even suppressed the great ways. No one could take it away, not even get close to it. He was a practitioner of the ancient star and knew that the legend was true. He knew that there was indeed a 7-colored divine light in the barren wasteland, but he had never seen it before. Now that he saw it with his own eyes, he felt that the great ways around him had surrendered to it. His eyes flickered and his face was full of shock. Wait for me here. I'll get it and then leave. Lin Tian now. This place was very quiet and there were no fierce birds or beasts nearby. He asked Whooshing Crocodile and the others to wait there while he walked toward the 7-colored divine light. Chapter 1456. Lin Tian didn't care about Jiang Yichuan's words. He continued to walk toward the small valley. You can't go there. Not only will you be seriously injured if you get close to it, but you may also attract very terrifying fierce beasts. All of us will be in danger. You are too reckless. Jiang Yichuan shouted anxiously. Shut up. Just watch quietly. Whooshing Crocodile growled and wanted to slap Jiang Yichuan away. The 7-colored divine light was extremely extraordinary. Ordinary people couldn't control it, but Lin Tian could easily absorb it into his body. It knew this very well. At this moment, listening to Jiang Yichuan's words, it felt a little annoyed. At this time, Lin Tian approached step by step. In the blink of an eye, he closed the distance of several hundred feet and came directly to the 7-colored divine light. When he witnessed this scene, Jiang Yichuan, who was over 1 kilometer away, immediately revealed an expression of shock and disbelief. Lin Tian had actually walked over to the ball of 7-colored divine light, and he hadn't encountered any obstruction throughout the entire process. It was like he was walking on flat ground. Then, in the next moment, his expression changed again. In his vision, Lin Tian stepped in front of the 7-colored divine light. His right hand moved slightly, and the 7-colored divine light seemed to be summoned. In a flash, it entered Lin Tian's body. In just a moment, there was a faint 7-colored divine light outside Lin Tian's body, as if it had merged with the 7-colored divine light. He was shocked. The legendary divine light of the immortal path on the star-connecting star contained 7 colors. It suppressed the great path and rejected everything. Even experts of the Eternal Realm with genuine immortal weapons couldn't take it away or even approach it. But now, in front of him, Lin Tian walked to the seven-colored divine light and easily absorbed it into his body. This made his eyelids twitch violently. How is this possible? He couldn't see Lin Tian's specific cultivation, but he could feel that Lin Tian definitely hadn't reached the Eternal Realm. However, Lin Tian easily took the seven-colored divine light that those experts of the Eternal Realm couldn't even get close to. This made him open his eyes wide. He felt like he was seeing an illusion at this moment. Buzz! In the small valley, Lin Tian guided the seven-colored divine light into his body. Then, the seven-colored divine light instantly entered his knowledge sea. The seven-colored divine light was the sword's soul fragment of the divine sword in his sea of consciousness. After entering his sea of consciousness, it instantly sank into the seven-colored divine sword at the bottom of his sea of consciousness. Then, just like before, strands of seven-colored divine light reverberated. The seven-colored light possessed extremely shocking amounts of spiritual qi. He immediately refined it with the Sun Heart Sutra, causing his body to be dyed with a layer of seven-colored light as a result. His vital energies rose at an extremely shocking rate. At the same time, his cultivation base began to improve again, from the middle immortal realm to the peak immortal realm. Just like that, 4 hours passed in the blink of an eye. 4 hours later, he completely refined the seven-colored divine light that was bestowed by the sword's soul fragment after merging with the divine sword. His vital energies were much stronger, and his cultivation base had increased a lot. He was not far away from the peak immortal realm. At the same time, he scanned the divine sword at the bottom of his sea of consciousness with his divine consciousness. He found that more divine inscriptions on the divine sword that were originally dim had become brighter. The aura it emitted was more vast and complex, as if it contained everything. About half of the divine inscriptions are lit up. About half of them are not lit up and are in a dim state. Glancing at the divine sword, he was a little absent-minded. How many sword soul fragments are scattered in this world? What is the origin of this divine sword? Over the years, he had studied the divine sword in his sea of consciousness countless times. However, in the end, except for the fact that it was very powerful and terrifying, he couldn't figure out anything else. He was completely confused about this sword. I don't know how long it will take to gather all of them, he sighed. Once the seven-colored divine sword was gathered, he was sure that it would be so terrifying that it would make one's hair stand on end. However, he really couldn't say for sure when it would be able to gather all the divine sword. However, even so, there was one thing that he was happy about. As more and more sword soul fragments were gathered, he found that he could occasionally sense the divine sword. When he communicated with it with his divine consciousness, he could occasionally make it vibrate a little. Of course, it was just a little vibration, and the probability of that happening was very small. Even so, this change was enough to make him happy. He felt that if he could find another 2 or 3 sword soul fragments, he might be able to summon the divine sword out of his sea of consciousness with his divine consciousness. Once he could summon the divine sword out, and use it as a weapon, it would undoubtedly be a super powerful killing weapon. He felt that it would not be difficult for him to kill an enemy who was 3 realms higher than him. He could do it easily. Later on, when he gathered all the sword soul fragments, he believed that he would be able to control the divine sword 100%. At that time, when the divine sword appeared, all things would retreat. Finally, he scanned the seven-colored divine sword with his divine consciousness and said to himself, "Try your best to find the sword soul fragments." Then, he opened his eyes. At this time, there was a faint divine light lingering around his body, causing the space around him to distort like water ripples. With a slight thought, he controlled the divine light outside his body and absorbed it into his body. He took a deep breath and then took a step forward. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Wishing Crocodile and the others. "Not bad, your cultivation has improved a lot." Wishing Crocodile clicked his tongue and said. Little Taichu called out in a childish voice. It landed on Lin Tian's shoulder and lay down leisurely. Only Jiang Yichuan's face was filled with shock as he looked at Lin Tian. At this moment, he was completely stunned. The legendary immortal Tao divine light that resided in the depths of the great wasteland had actually been so easily obtained by Lin Tian. "Okay, let's go," Lin Tian said. He'd only entered the great wasteland to obtain the sword soul fragments. Now that he'd obtained them, there was no need for them to stay here any longer. Immediately, he led Wishing Crocodile and the others along the path they'd come from, avoiding the terrible beasts in the depths of the great wasteland. Soon after, they walked out of the great wasteland. Outside the great wasteland, the air was much fresher and the wind was much gentler. There was no longer the oppressive feeling in the great wasteland. "Let's part here," he said to Jiang Yichuan. Jiang Yichuan had asked to go with them because he was afraid of the birds and beasts in the great wasteland. Now that they were out of the great wasteland, the threat from the birds and beasts had disappeared. There was no need for Jiang Yichuan to follow them, and there was even less need for him to bring Jiang Yichuan along. "Oh, okay, Jiang Yichuan said. Until now, he was still immersed in the shock that Lin Tian had obtained the immortal divine light in the depths of the great wasteland. Lin Tian nodded at him and didn't say anything more. He led Wishing Crocodile and little Taichu into the distance. Soon, they were far away and disappeared at the end of the sky. Jiang Yichuan looked at Lin Tian's receding figure, and the shock in his eyes was still very strong. He muttered to himself. Unexpectedly, after dozens of breaths, the shock in his eyes gradually weakened, and then slowly disappeared. "The immortal divine light has been taken and merged. The value of this news to those top forces." The expression in his eyes began to change uncontrollably. Lin Tian and the others walked out of the great wasteland and separated from Jiang Yichuan. At this time, they had already crossed several mountains. "Boy, where are we going now?" Wishing Crocodile asked. "First, we'll go to the Jiang family to find Luoluo, and then leave this ancient star. Or maybe we can see if we can train in this world and find opportunities to continue improving ourselves." Lin Tian now. After obtaining the sword soul fragment in the great wasteland, whether they wanted to leave this ancient planet or continue to train in this ancient planet, they had to go to the Jiang family. After all, if they left, they would definitely have to say goodbye to Jiang Luoluo. And if they wanted to stay in this world to train, Jiang Luoluo, who was familiar with this world, would undoubtedly be a very qualified guide. Immediately, they flew towards the Jiang family. Because there was no urgent matter, they didn't fly very fast. After dozens of breaths, they left behind several mountains. Suddenly, two figures rushed over from the southeast. The two figures were extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of Lin Tian and the others, blocking the path forward of Lin Tian and the others. These were two elders. Their spirits were very strong, and they were both in the middle stage of Emperor Realm. "It's you!" Lin Tian stopped, looked at the two elders rushing over, and smiled faintly. These two people were two of the three elders who had followed behind Wu Si from the Wu family. Previously, one of them had been ordered by Wu Si to take his life, but he had been killed by him. Now, these two stronger people had appeared before him. He naturally knew the purpose of their visit. Obviously, because the previous elder failed to kill him, Wu Si from the Wu family continued to send people to take his life. Next to him, Wishing Crocodile stared at the two elders rushing over. Its eyes lit up. "Boy, take them down. This is the treasure. They are here to deliver the treasure to Lord Crocodile." It naturally knew that these two elders were ordered by Wu Si to kill Lin Tian, but it didn't care at all. After all, Lin Tian was in the middle stage of Immortal Realm. These two elders in the middle stage of Emperor Realm were not even ants in front of Lin Tian. At this time, what it cared about was the flesh shells of these two people. As long as Lin Tian destroyed the souls of these two people, the flesh shells of these two people would become its treasure. It could use the saint refining treasure technique to refine them, and it could directly rush to the Emperor Realm. The two elders' expressions were indifferent, and the murderous light in their eyes was not concealed. When they looked at Lin Tian, it was as if they were looking at a corpse. Hum! Divine light intertwined. With a hum, a seal rushed out from one of them. It immediately emitted a very shocking aura of an eternal weapon, directly sealing the space in this place. Disappear. Chapter 1457. The seal was intertwined with blazing divine light, and it was covered with dense divine runes. It was like a divine moon falling from the starry sky. The void in all directions froze, and an unparalleled aura surged. The air was shaken to a halt. An eternal weapon? He actually brought out such a level of precious weapon. It must be Wu Si who brought it out. Wishing Crocodile narrowed his eyes. The power of an eternal weapon was very terrifying. Even for the Wu family, which had produced a true immortal expert, it was a precious treasure. These two Emperor Realm Elders were definitely not qualified to have it. Only Wu Si, who was equivalent to the Wu family's holy son, could take it out. Lin Tian raised his head and looked at the eternal weapon level seal pressing down. The black hair on his forehead fluttered in the wind. His expression was very calm. You're quite strong to be able to kill Wu Xian. However, under the eternal weapon, everything will be buried. Die in peace. On the opposite side, one of the two middle-stage Emperor Realm Elders spoke with an indifferent expression. The Wu Xing he spoke of was clearly the gray-robed old man in early Emperor Sky Realm that Wu Si had sent to kill Lin Tian. You can only blame yourself for being too close to Miss Luo Luo. To our young master, your existence is too much of an eyesore. The other old man spoke as well. His voice was indifferent as well, and it carried a bearing as if everything was under his control. For a moment, the seal pressing down on Lin Tian was even more terrifying. The power of the eternal weapon sealed the surroundings. Its killing power was terrifying. You talk too much. Lin Tian spoke. Facing the eternal weapon level seal pressing down, he directly raised his hand and punched it. Dong! Like a thunderclap, his fist seemed to shatter the sky. In the blink of an eye, it collided with the eternal weapon level seal. With a bang, the eternal weapon level seal trembled and was directly smashed thousands of feet away. After it landed on a large mountain, the mountain was smashed into ashes. How is this possible? The expressions of the two old men changed on the spot. The Zone treasure seal was an eternal weapon. With their cultivation at the middle stage Emperor Sky Realm, they were confident that they could even kill an early stage Immortal Realm expert with it. However, it was sent flying by Lin Tian's punch. You! When they looked at Lin Tian again, the two old men's hearts trembled. Their previous calmness and indifference instantly disappeared without a trace. At this moment, they were horrified. To be able to send their eternal weapon flying with a simple punch, what level of strength was this? The two of them trembled violently. They quickly summoned their eternal weapons and fled into the distance. With just this simple strike, they already knew that Lin Tian was terrifying. Even with the eternal weapon, they were no match for him. If they continued to stay, they would die. Why are you running so fast? Lin Tian Dao, the great god power at the peak of the middle stage of Immortal Realm, moved and sealed the void, pushing the two back. The two old men were shocked and frightened. Once again, they worked together to activate the eternal weapon-grade seal, causing a killing light to erupt in the sky. This time, they didn't attack Lin Tian, but the void sealed by Lin Tian. They only wanted to break the seal of the void and escape because they knew very well that the eternal weapon couldn't threaten Lin Tian in a head-on confrontation. Lin Tian's expression was calm. He raised his hand and slapped. As the most powerful reincarnated body, his cultivation had reached the peak of the middle stage of Immortal Realm. He had been struck by the heavenly tribulation all the way until now. Now, his body was not weaker than an early-stage Eternal Realm expert. He might even be stronger. With the pure strength of his flesh, he was not afraid of the eternal weapon. Buzz! As he slapped the air, the void roared. It fell on the eternal weapon-grade seal and sent it flying again. You! The two old men trembled in shock and fear. Lin Tian didn't say anything superfluous. He directly pointed out two golden lights. In an instant they passed through the two old men's eyebrows and shattered their divine souls in the sea of consciousness. With two bangs, the two old men fell on their backs. The luster of life in their eyes faded quickly, and they became two corpses. Hey! Whooshing Crocodile laughed. Without needing Lin Tian to say anything, he moved his demon power and directly rolled the two old men's flesh shells over. Lin Tian looked into the distance. With a wave of his hand, he grabbed the seal he had slapped away. He raised his hand and erased the other people's spiritual imprints on it. Then, he put it into his body. This was an eternal weapon. It was very valuable. Find a place to refine them. He glanced at the two old men's flesh shells rolled over by Whooshing Crocodile and said, "Of course." Whooshing Crocodile said and laughed. Immediately, Lin Tian spread out his powerful divine sense and found a hidden place not far from this position. He asked Whooshing Crocodile to perform the Saint Refining Precious technique. He stood aside and guarded Whooshing Crocodile. Buzz! Whooshing Crocodile performed the Saint Refining Precious technique. His demon power surged and began to refine the two flesh shells. His essence, chi, and spirit immediately began to rise. Just like that, 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. The two Mid-Emperor Realm old men's flesh shells were completely refined by Whooshing Crocodile with the Saint Refining Precious technique. A powerful demon power spread in this place. Whooshing Crocodile directly stepped into the Emperor Realm. Awesome! This is awesome! Lord Crocodile has also reached the Emperor Realm. Whooshing Crocodile was very excited. You're so excited just to reach the early stage of the Emperor Realm. Can you be more mature? Lin Tian glanced at it and said, Spend a few more days to consolidate your Emperor Realm cultivation. Whooshing Crocodile rolled its eyes. Then, it once again performed its Demon Clan ancient scripture and began to consolidate its Emperor Realm cultivation. Just like that, another 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, Whooshing Crocodile opened its eyes and stopped performing the ancient scripture. Its Emperor Realm cultivation was completely stabilized. Not bad. You can fight against a Mid-Emperor Realm cultivator. Lin Tian looked at Whooshing Crocodile and nodded with a smile. With his powerful immortal realm divine sense, he could feel that Whooshing Crocodile's spirit was very strong at this time. Although it had just stepped into the Emperor Realm, its combat power was definitely not weaker than a Mid-Emperor Realm cultivator. Who is Lord Crocodile? How can I be weak? Whooshing Crocodile said proudly. Then it said, Speaking of which, this little bastard Wu is determined to kill you. The first time he sent someone to kill you, he didn't succeed. He actually came for a second time so soon. Moreover, he even took out an eternal weapon and let those two old men carry it. How vicious. The first time he failed to kill me, his hypocrisy and insidiousness were completely exposed in front of me. He was worried that I would tell Luo Luo about this. Naturally, he can't wait to get rid of me. He wants to get rid of me before I see Luo Luo again. Lin Tian could easily guess what Wu Si was thinking. Whooshing Crocodile narrowed its eyes and said, What do you think? It's still the same sentence. He's just a clown. It's fine if I don't see him. If I see him again, I'll kill him directly. Lin Tian now said. As for Luo Luo, I don't need to say anything. That girl knows very well that that person is not a good person. He pretended to be elegant and peaceful on the surface to try to gain Luo Luo's favor. He was like an idiot from the beginning. Whooshing Crocodile felt the same way. Disgusting. Let's go to the Jiang family to find Luo Luo. Lin Tian now. The little Taichu lay on his shoulder leisurely. He called Whooshing Crocodile and headed towards the Jiang family. Soon, more than a dozen mountains were left behind. At this moment, the space suddenly trembled. The air within a radius of a few hundred feet became somewhat condensed and oppressive. 3 figures strode over from afar. They were 3 old men. All of them had extraordinary auras and strong blood chi, like 3 furnaces. The divine power fluctuations outside their bodies were astonishing. Each of them was at the half-step to the Eternal Realm. Half-step to the Eternal Realm? Are they from the Wu family again? That little bastard Wu Si can even mobilize people at this level? Whooshing Crocodile was surprised. Lin Tian shook his head. They're not from the Wu family. an expert at the half-step to the Eternal Realm, was already at the Wu family's Grand Elder level. Their status was much higher than that of the Wu family's patriarch. Even though Wu Si was the holy son of the Wu family, it was impossible for him to mobilize people at this level. Most importantly, he did not sense any aura similar to Wu Si and the other Wu family members from these people. Who are they? Wishing Crocodile was puzzled. Lin Tian looked at the three people in front of him calmly and did not seem to care at all. You'll have to ask them. He looked at the three old men. He could feel that they were not friendly, but his expression did not change at all. The three old men had deep eyes. One was in a purple robe, one was in a black robe, and the last one was in a white robe. At this moment, their eyes fell on Lin Tian. There was a very obvious and intense light in their eyes. Middle stage of the immortal realm? It's hard to imagine that someone at this level could take away the immortal divine light in the crimson fallen wilderness. Even our eternal realm patriarch could not take it away or even get close to it. The purple-robed old man said. Lin Tian's face darkened when he heard this. At the same time, Wishing Crocodile's expression changed. How did you know? Lin Tianling stared coldly at the three old men. There's no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Someone always tells us. Among the three old men, the old man in a black robe said. His voice was a little indifferent, but his eyes were burning as he looked at Lin Tian as if he was looking at a shocking treasure. Lin Tian's eyes became cold, and a chill spread out from his body. Jiang Yichuan. His voice was cold. He, Wishing Crocodile, and little Taichu went to the crimson fallen wilderness to take the sword's soul fragment. At that time, only Jiang Yichuan was there. At this time, he did not even have to think about it. He instantly knew that Jiang Yichuan had told these people about it. It's worth it to exchange a low-grade eternal weapon and dozens of bottles of bowed and divine medicine for this information. The black-robed old man said, not denying Lin Tian's words. It was enough to show that Lin Tian's guess was not wrong. Biting the hand that feeds you. That son of a bitch. Wishing Crocodile's eyes were burning with anger. Chapter 1458. Lin Tian's eyes were cold, and Wishing Crocodile was also angry. He never thought that he would be stabbed in the back by the person he had saved. Even the innocent little Taichu was angry at this time and clenched his little paws. Jiang Yichuan was the worst. Damn it! The surrounding void was sealed, and the three old men imprisoned this space with their powerful cultivation. The purple-robed old man looked at Lin Tian with a kind of arrogance and said, Bind your hands and be a guest of our Zhou family. Don't worry, we want to know how you got the divine light. Before we figure out the reason and take it out of your body and really control it, we won't kill you. With that, he glanced at Wishing Crocodile and little Taichu beside Lin Tian and said, As for your two animal friends, we will give them a quick death. When they learned from Jiang Yichuan that Lin Tian had obtained the divine light of the immortal path in the depths of the Red Wilds, everyone in the Zhou family was shocked. It was said that the divine light had all kinds of possibilities. Since ancient times, countless experts in the Tongheng ancient star had gone to the Red Wilds in vain to get it, but they all failed. No one could do it. Even a person at the peak of the Eternal Realm with a genuine immortal weapon couldn't get close. At first, they didn't believe it at all, but when Jiang Yichuan used his divine sense brand, they believed it and paid Jiang Yichuan a good reward. Then, except for the eternal ancestor who was in closed-door cultivation, the three strongest highest elders of the Zhou family took action at the same time. They attached great importance to this matter and wanted to suppress Lin Tian and bring him back to the family. They thought that Lin Tianyi must have some special method to get the divine light with the cultivation of the immortal realm. After suppressing Lin Tian and bringing him back to the family, they would find out the method and take the divine light from Lin Tian's body and really control it. This would definitely be of great benefit to the Zhou family. This was because that ball of divine light was truly too extraordinary. Come here. Don't make us suppress you personally. That will only make you suffer unnecessarily. He glanced at Wishing Crocodile and little Taichu beside Lin Tian. As for you two, you can disappear now. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 rays of sword light appeared beside him. With a clanging sound, they shot straight towards Whooshing Crocodile and little Tai Chu. In the blink of an eye, the 2 streaks of sword radiance arrived in front of Whooshing Crocodile and little Tai Chu. It was also at this time that the chill around Lin Tian's body became even thicker. A vast and mighty thunderous force shook the heavens. With 2 cracking sounds, the purple-robed old man's 2 sword lights were directly shattered. The purple-robed old man was slightly shocked. Although he did not use his full strength, the 2 streaks of sword radiance were still terrifying enough. They could even destroy an ordinary expert at the peak of the immortal realm. But now, they were shattered by Lin Tian's aura. At the same time, the black-robed old man and the white-robed old man who came with him were also shocked. "You old bastards dare to be so arrogant in front of me? Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are?" Lin Tian's voice was cold. "Boom!" thunder roared. Electric arcs intertwined around his body, making crackling sounds. In the blink of an eye, the sky turned pitch black. Silver lightning flashed in the sky. In an instant, an aura like a heavenly tribulation oppressed all directions. It seemed that a destructive disaster was about to befall. The 3 supreme elders of the Zhou family trembled, and their expressions changed. At this moment, the thunderous aura emanating from Lin Tian was too terrifying. Even though they were experts at the half-step to the eternal realm, they still felt terrified. The purple-robed old man was shocked. His previous arrogance disappeared without a trace. Boom! An earth-shattering clap of thunder rang out as if it was about to pierce through everyone's eardrums. A thick bolt of silver lightning descended from the sky like a silver lightning dragon. It directly enveloped the purple-robed elder and smashed him to pieces. Even his soul was destroyed. "Third brother!" The black-robed old man and the white-robed old man exclaimed in unison. How is this possible?" The 2 old men trembled. An expert at the half-step to the eternal realm was killed in one blow. Boom! The thunder rumbled and the sky turned even darker. Silver lightning flashed in the sky. It was terrifying. Lin Tian was furious. The Wu family's Wu Sishu was a hypocrite. He had sent people to kill him twice, but he wasn't angry at all. He only treated those people as jumping clowns. But now, a person he had saved with his own hands turned around and betrayed him, stabbing him in the back. He wanted to use the 7-colored divine light he obtained in the Crimson Fall wasteland in exchange for benefits. Looking at the black-robed old man and the white-robed old man of the Zhou family, Lin Tian's eyes were cold. The 5 thunder sky-shocking skill led thousands of thunderbolts to fall. In an instant, the world was enveloped by silver lightning and turned into a silver sea of thunder. Puff! The black-robed old man was directly smashed into pieces. Only his divine soul managed to escape. He fled in shock and fear. However, his divine soul had only escaped a few hundred feet before it was pressed down by the dense silver thunderbolts. "Stop! I can only—" "Ah!" An ear-piercing scream resounded through the sky. The man's divine soul was directly smashed into pieces. His body was shattered and his divine soul was destroyed. Lin Tian glanced at the white-robed old man with cold eyes. As the strongest reincarnation king body, he had reached the peak of the middle stage of the immortal realm after being struck by the heavenly tribulation. Now, he was absolutely invincible among those below the eternal realm. No one below the eternal realm could resist him. Spare my life. I promise I won't trouble you in the future." The white-robed old man was frightened and begged for mercy. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. The silver thunderbolts intertwined and condensed into a big thunderbolt hand. It grabbed the white-robed old man and dragged him to the front. His powerful divine thought turned into an immortal sword and plunged into the old man's sea of consciousness to search for everything about Jiang Yichuan. "Ah!" the white-robed old man screamed. His sea of consciousness was cracked by Lin Tian's violent divine thought. Lin Tian's face was cold. His powerful divine thought wandered in the old man's sea of consciousness. After dozens of breaths, he learned everything. As he guessed, after leaving the vast wilderness, Jiang Yichuan took the initiative to visit the Zhou family of the Clan of Desolation. He used the 7-colored divine light that he had obtained from the Crimson Wilderness as a bargaining chip to inform the Zhou family. In exchange, he obtained an eternal weapon and dozens of bottles of bowed and divine medicine. At the same time, he also learned that Jiang Yichuan was the young master of the Treasure Pavilion of Nanluo, which was connected to the star. The Treasure Pavilion of Nanluo was a 4th-class sect on the ancient star. It was founded by an emperor-level cultivator. Now, the most powerful person in the sect was at the Celestial Master level. Jiang Yichuan was the son of the current master of the Treasure Pavilion of Nanluo. After finding this, he no longer showed mercy. The 5 thunders shocking the sky technique surged and shattered the white-robed old man. Then, he moved his mind slightly and put away the 5 thunders shocking the sky technique. "Change the route to the Treasure Pavilion of Nanluo," he said. "Where is Jiang Yichuan?" Whooshing Crocodile asked. At this time, Lin Tian turned to the Treasure Pavilion of Nanluo. It naturally guessed that this had something to do with Jiang Yichuan. Lin Tian nodded and briefly told Whooshing Crocodile about the information about Jiang Yichuan that he found in the white-robed old man's mind. "Let's go! Let's kill that son of a bitch!" Whooshing Crocodile said. The feeling of being betrayed was really uncomfortable, especially when the person who betrayed them was someone they had saved before. "Yeah!" The innocent little Grand Primordium was also panting with rage as it waved its claws at the air. "Let's go!" Lin Tian now changed the route and headed to the south of this place. From the white-robed old man's mind, he found out that Jiang Yichuan was the young master of the Treasure Pavilion of Nanluo. Naturally, he also found the location of the Treasure Pavilion of Nanluo. It was located in the extreme south of this ancient planet. Soon, he, Whooshing Crocodile, and little Taichu went far away. Ancient planet Tongheng, Zhou family of Desolation. The Zhou family was a great power that had been passed down since the Desolation Age. Together with the Jiang family, the Wu family, the Heaven-Severing Divine Sect, and the Tongheng Immortal Sect, they were the strongest inheritances on the ancient planet Tongheng. They were founded by a genuine immortal expert. They were established in a group of sacred mountains. There were many majestic jade palaces inside, and the spiritual energy was so dense that it almost turned into liquid. "What?" A roar came from a hall of the Zhou family. The master of the Zhou family stood in the center of the hall, his body trembling uncontrollably. At the same time, there were many other important figures of the Zhou family in the hall. At this moment, all of them were pale. Just now, they had received a report that the soul lamps of the 3 highest elders of the Zhou family had all been extinguished. The 3 highest elders were dispatched at the same time to suppress the man who took away the divine light of the immortal path. That man killed the 3 highest elders? The 3 highest elders were all experts half a step to the eternal realm. In our family, only the ancestor, who is in closed-door cultivation, could suppress them. But now they were, how could this be? Didn't Jiang Yichuan of the South Gathering Treasure Pavilion say that the man's cultivation had not reached the eternal realm? The 3 highest elders of our family who were half a step to the eternal realm were dispatched at the same time. They could kill anyone below the eternal realm. How could they be? In the hall, the important figures of the Zhou family were both shocked and angry. The 3 highest elders of the Zhou family who were half a step to the eternal realm, the 3 core figures of the Zhou family, were killed outside the family. After killing the 3 highest elders of the Zhou family, Lin Tian, Whooshing Crocodile, and little Taichu walked far away from their original position. They had crossed dozens of primitive mountains in succession. More than 2 hours later, the group arrived at a spiritual mountain in the extreme south of the Eternity Star. As far as the eye could see, there were a large number of pavilions located in the spiritual mountain range. Some spiritual birds were flying in the sky. Outside the pavilions, there were many practitioners with vigorous blood qi guarding. "Here we are, the South Gathering Treasure Pavilion." Lin Tian looked at the spiritual mountain range, his eyes intertwined with strands of cold light. This spiritual mountain range was the place where the South Gathering Treasure Pavilion was established. It had been passed down for a long time. Go in, find that ungrateful bastard and chop him into mincemeat, Whooshing Crocodile said coldly. Chapter 1459. The Nanluo Treasure Pavilion was in the mountains. Lin Tian led Whooshing Crocodile and Little Taichu to the front gate of the Nanluo Treasure Pavilion in the blink of an eye. Arriving here, he did not say a word and directly stepped into the Nanluo Treasure Pavilion. His eyes were cold. He was truly a little angry. If Jiang Yichuan had accidentally revealed that he had taken away the seven-colored divine light from the depths of the great wilderness, he would not have cared. In fact, even if Jiang Yichuan had bragged about it, he would not have caused trouble for him. However, the other party knew that the Zhou family was extremely concerned about that ball of divine light, and knew that he would definitely be dealt with by the Zhou family if he revealed this matter. But he still revealed this secret to the Zhou family in exchange for many treasures. This was something that he could not tolerate. Who are you? Stop right there! Any major force would have disciples standing guard outside the main entrance, and the South-Sifting Treasure Pavilion was naturally no exception. When the dozens of South-Sifting Treasure Pavilion disciples standing guard outside saw Lin Tian, Five-Element Alligator, and Little Tai Chu approaching, someone immediately stepped forward and coldly reprimanded them. Lin Tian's pace did not change, and his eyes were cold. You're courting death! A cold light flashed in the eyes of the Nanluo disciple who shouted. He raised a long spear in his hand and directly slashed at Lin Tian. Outside Lin Tian's body, the aura naturally lingered, and with a bang, the Nanluo disciple who attacked was sent flying hundreds of meters away. He coughed up blood in the distance, and then fainted directly. You dare to fight back? You deliberately came to the Nanluo Treasure Pavilion to make trouble? Suppress him! In this place, the other Nanluo disciples were shocked and angry. Their eyes were cold, and they all attacked Lin Tian together. Get out! Next to Lin Tian, Whooshing Crocodile said coldly, and a strong demonic power suddenly spread out. Suddenly, the Nanluo disciples who rushed forward were all sent flying, and the weapons in their hands were all turned into ashes without exception. Lin Tian's footsteps didn't change at all. He crossed the front gate of the Southern Treasure Pavilion and directly entered the pavilion. Inside the South Gathering Treasure Pavilion, there were many cultivators coming and going. Naturally, many of them noticed that Lin Tian's group had knocked over 10 disciples guarding the entrance and forced their way into the treasure pavilion. All of them revealed shocked expressions, and at the same time, their gazes turned icy cold. You guys, how dare you? How dare you barge into my sect? A powerful deacon said. Take them all! Boom! Dozens of divine powers immediately spread out. In this place, many disciples of the treasure pavilion attacked Lin Tian together. Outside of Lin Tian's body, a natural aura surged and turned into ripples that rippled outwards. In an instant, the people who had made a move were all sent flying. Attack together! An elder-level figure noticed this and ordered everyone to attack together. They unleashed all kinds of divine abilities to pressure Lin Tian. However, the result was the same. Lin Tian didn't make a move. Instead, the naturally intertwined divine powers outside of his body caused the people who attacked to cough up blood and fly away. Even the Nirvana-level elder who had given the order was no exception. For a moment, everyone here was terrified. When they looked at Lin Tian again, they all trembled and felt powerless. Tong! Go and inform the hierarch and the supreme elders! Someone said in a trembling voice. Immediately, someone left and ran towards the depths of the treasure pavilion, trembling. Lin Tian's expression was cold and indifferent. He didn't stop this person. With a sweep of his powerful immortal divine telekinesis, he instantly found Jiang Yichuan. Jiang Yichuan's position just happened to be in the depths of the treasure pavilion. His gaze was cold as he walked slowly towards the depths of the treasure pavilion on foot. In a pavilion deep in the treasure pavilion, Jiang Yichuan and a middle-aged man in a yellow robe sat facing each other at a jade table. Dozens of bottles of Baodan were placed on the jade table. At this moment, the bottles were open, and a rich medicinal fragrance spread out, refreshing the mind. At the same time, a crimson gold sword was placed horizontally on the table. It was covered in Tao patterns and exuded an extremely sharp sword might. How is it, father? Not bad, right? Jiang Yichuan smiled proudly and was somewhat pleased with himself as he spoke to the yellow-robed middle-aged man beside him. The yellow-robed middle-aged man's eyes were filled with surprise and excitement. The golden pupil pill, the Luohong pill, the source nurturing pill, the purple soul pill, the blacking pill. This is also very useful for emperor-level powerhouses. As he spoke, his gaze fell on the crimson gold sword on the table and became even more excited. His body couldn't help but tremble. There's also an eternal weapon-grade treasure sword. The yellow-robed middle-aged man was Jiang Yichuan's father and the current pavilion master of the treasure pavilion. His cultivation was at the 5th level of the emperor level and was considered very strong. His mental state cultivation wasn't bad, but at this moment, when he saw the treasures on the jade table, his eyelids couldn't help but twitch. He was so excited that he couldn't control himself. This treasure was simply too shocking. Not only were there dozens of bottles of Baodan that was very useful for emperor-level powerhouses, but there was also an eternal weapon. This was simply a shocking treasure trove. One had to know that the strongest treasure trove of the treasure pavilion was only a middle-grade ancestral weapon. But now, among the treasures that Jiang Yichuan brought back, there was an eternal weapon. An eternal weapon-grade treasure trove, which was 2 levels stronger than an ancestral weapon. Just with this eternal weapon, the treasure pavilion was enough to be called number 1 among the sects of the same level in the eternal ancient star. It was even to the extent that those great powers that were originally a level higher than the South Gathering Treasure Pavilion would be extremely fearful of them. Good, good, good! This is great! Great! Sect Master Nan Luo was excited, but then he hid his excitement. He looked at Jiang Yichuan and asked worriedly, I heard you say that the young man who took away the immortal divine brilliance is very strong. He is at least at the emperor level. If you tell the Zhou family that he took away the immortal divine brilliance and bring back these treasures, that young man will definitely not let it go. At that time, it will be a big trouble. Sect Master Nan Luo already knew how Jiang Yichuan obtained these treasures from Jiang Yichuan. At this time, besides being excited, he couldn't help but be a little worried. Don't worry, father. Don't you know how valuable that immortal divine brilliance is? After the people of the Zhou family found out about this, the 3 half-step eternal level Grand Elders took action at the same time. As long as they found that young man, he would definitely be suppressed and brought back to the Zhou family. Then, the result was self-evident. The secret of how he took away the immortal divine brilliance, and the Zhou family took away the immortal divine brilliance that merged with his body. Then, he would be killed. Therefore, even if he knows that I told the Zhou family about this, he can't do anything. We don't need to worry about anything. Jiang Yichuan continued with a leisurely smile on his face. Well, I feel sorry for him. After all, he saved my life. As he said this, he didn't feel the slightest bit guilty. Instead, he was faintly proud. Then, as if thinking of something, he looked at Sect Master Nan Luo and said, By the way, father, now that we have an eternal weapon, can we go to the ancient mansion that we found 3 years ago? With the power of this eternal weapon, perhaps we can really open that immortal mansion and take out all the treasures inside. At that time, our treasure pavilion will definitely become stronger very quickly. It's not impossible for us to reach the level of the Zhou family of the remote antiquity. Hearing Jiang Yichuan mention that immortal mansion, Sect Master Nan Luo's eyes couldn't help but flash. He pondered and said, We can try. However, even with the help of the eternal weapon, we may not have much hope. There are all kinds of complicated terrains in that place. Moreover, there are too many Tao patterns and array seals. It's too difficult to really enter that immortal mansion. 3 years ago, they accidentally obtained a yellowed booklet. There was a lot of content in it, and it pointed to a strange place. Out of curiosity, they followed the content in it and found an immortal mansion in a barren mountain. Outside the immortal mansion, they sensed the fluctuation of the immortal path. Then, they found that it was a cultivation immortal mansion left behind by a true immortal. There seemed to be a lot of treasures inside because they happened to see a flash of immortal light in the depths of the immortal mansion. At that time, they were overjoyed and immediately tried to break into the immortal mansion. However, they failed. They couldn't break in at all. The various earth veins there were very mysterious, and there were many doubt patterns and array seals in the void. They almost died tragically. After that, they would go to the immortal mansion every once in a while. Even the celestial venerables in the sect went there. They used all kinds of methods, but it was useless. Once, they even lost the life of a 9th-stage celestial venerable supreme elder. After that, they went to the immortal mansion less and less because it was really difficult to break in. However, that place was always in their hearts. They always cared about it because that immortal mansion was too important to the south-sifting branch. As long as they could break in and take the treasures inside, the south-sifting treasure pavilion would be able to develop and grow in a very short time. At least, they could become a second-level force in this world. Moreover, there was even hope that they could reach the level of the 5 top forces, the Tongheng Immortal School and the Zhou family of the Ancients. No matter how big the hope is, let's try again. Maybe we'll succeed, Jiang Yichuan said. The headmaster of the South-Sifting Treasure Pavilion nodded and said, "Okay, the Supreme Elders and I, bang!" Suddenly, the main door of the hall was knocked open. A disciple of the South-Sifting Treasure Pavilion rushed in. His face was full of anxiety, and his voice was trembling. "Headmaster, there's presumptuous. What is this place? Who allowed you to break in?" The headmaster of the South-Sifting Treasure Pavilion interrupted him and shouted. The disciple who broke in trembled and knelt on the ground to salute. I'm sorry. Please forgive me, headmaster." As he spoke, he continued, But headmaster, someone broke into our South-Sifting Treasure Pavilion. He's very strong, and we couldn't stop him. Even the elders were injured. Headmaster, please go and take a look." "What?" The headmaster of the South-Sifting Treasure Pavilion was furious. Someone dared to break into the South-Sifting Treasure Pavilion and hurt people. On the side, Jiang Yichuan smiled. With a wave of his hand, the eternal weapon scarlet gold sword on the jade table fell into his hand. A clanging sword sound spread out. Even the elders weren't a match for him. Presumably, he's at least a half-step emperor. Not bad, he came at the right time. Let this young master try the power of this treasure sword. As he spoke, he walked out of the hall with the scarlet gold sword. The disciple of the South-Sifting Treasure Pavilion who came to report saw the scarlet gold sword in Jiang Yichuan's hand and couldn't help but tremble. Even though his cultivation wasn't strong, he could still feel the terror of this scarlet gold sword. It was as if it could shatter everything in the world. Inside the South-Sifting Treasure Pavilion, Lin Tian's gaze was cold. He brought the wishing crocodile and the little Taichu all the way to the depths of this branch. Wherever he passed, many disciples of the South-Sifting Treasure Pavilion retreated. Each and every one of their faces was filled with fear. Many of their faces were pale. This was because just now, many people from their branch had tried to suppress Lin Tian. Even the Nirvana Realm Elders had tried, but they were all sent flying. Even the aura that naturally intertwined around Lin Tian's body couldn't stop him. This caused everyone to feel fear. Just the aura that naturally interweaved around his body was already so powerful. Even the elders of their bloodline could not resist it. Just how terrifying was this person? How could they fight against him? I want to see which blind bastard is so daring to intrude into my southern treasure pavilion and act so presumptuously. Chapter 1460. An eternal weapon was really extraordinary. Holding this divine sword, Jiang Yichuan's body exuded an imposing aura. Wherever he passed, the space distorted, and all the disciples of the treasure pavilion of the South Sift Treasure Pavilion were shocked. Young master's aura, so strong! That sword, what is that? Many disciples of the treasure pavilion of the South Sift Treasure Pavilion were shocked. Their eyes fell on the golden sword in Jiang Yichuan's hand, and their hearts trembled. The sword power exuded by this sword was too terrifying. Jiang Yichuan enjoyed the shocked expressions of these disciples. He felt more and more that he had made a wise choice by exchanging. Lin Tian took the seven-colored divine light from the Crimson Fall wilderness for this sword. He walked slowly from the depths of the treasure pavilion of the South Sift Treasure Pavilion. In front of him, a group of disciples of the treasure pavilion took the initiative to make way for him. Suddenly, the space in front of him, which was originally covered by the body of a South Sift Treasure Pavilion disciple, was instantly revealed. Jiang Yichuan, with a proud face, instantly saw Lin Tian, Wishing Crocodile, and Little Tai Chu. In an instant, Jiang Yichuan's expression changed. The proud expression on his face froze, and he couldn't help but stagger back. You! His face turned pale. After discovering that it was Lin Tian who broke into the treasure pavilion and hurt people, and looking at Lin Tian's cold expression, he had a very ominous premonition in his heart. Lin Tian knew that he had told on the Zhou family? Son of a bitch, biting the hand that feeds you. Is the sword in your hand useful? Wishing Crocodile sneered. The moment it came here and saw Jiang Yichuan, it noticed that the golden sword in his hand was an eternal weapon. It immediately guessed that this was the low-grade eternal weapon that Jiang Yichuan had exchanged for by telling the Zhou family that Lin Tian took the seven-colored divine light from the Crimson Fall wilderness. With the strength of the treasure pavilion of the South Sift Treasure Pavilion, it simply couldn't take out such a precious weapon. For a moment, the coldness in its eyes became stronger, and it didn't hide its killing intent towards Jiang Yichuan at all. Little Taichu's eyes were wide open as he glared at Jiang Yichuan. He was very angry at Jiang Yichuan for biting the hand that fed him. Lin Tian's gaze was cold. At this moment, he was still dozens of feet away from Jiang Yichuan. He walked towards him step by step. Jiang Yichuan was flustered. He walked toward Lin Tian, then stumbled backward. At this time, there was no need to have any doubts. The matter of him using Lin Tian took away the rainbow divine light in the Crimson Fall Great Wasteland to inform the Zhou clan in exchange for many treasures had obviously been known by Lin Tian. This made him both shocked and frightened. After he informed the Zhou clan dispatched 3 half-step Eternal Realm Supreme Elders. Since Lin Tianji could learn about him informing the Zhou clan from these 3 half-step Eternal Realm Supreme Elders, it meant that the Zhou clan's 3 half-step Eternal Realm Supreme Elders had already found Lin Tianji and dealt with him. However, in this sort of situation, how was Lin Tian able to escape unscathed and find this place after knowing all of this? How could the 3 half-step Eternal Realm Supreme Elders of the Zhou clan fail to suppress Lin Tian? How could this be? He couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he tried. Then, seeing Lin Tian getting closer and closer to him, his heart trembled again. His face turned pale, and his nirvana realm body couldn't stop trembling. Brother Lin, listen to me. There's a reason for this, swoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air was heard. Lin Tian suddenly sped up and appeared in front of Jiang Yichuan in an instant. He interrupted his words and kicked him in the chest. With a bang, Jiang Yichuan was sent flying and crashed into a stone pillar not far away. He coughed up blood on the spot and howled like a pig being slaughtered. All the bones in his body were broken. Young master! The disciples of the treasure pavilion trembled in fear and shock. This was the first time that Lin Tian had taken the initiative to attack after breaking in. Jiang Yichuan coughed up blood not far away and screamed again and again. Yichuan! The master of the South Net's voice came from not far away. He quickly rushed here. Previously, after receiving the report from his disciples that Lin Tian and others had forced their way into the sect, he saw Jiang Yichuan come out with the eternal weapon level golden red sword. He was not in a hurry because he knew that the eternal weapon was very powerful. He felt that Jiang Yichuan could kill the invaders with the power of the eternal weapon level sword. He carefully put away the dozens of bowed and magic herbs on the jade table and then walked here. At this time, he arrived at this place and happened to see Jiang Yichuan lying on the ground and coughing up blood. He was so fast that he appeared beside Jiang Yichuan in a flash. He was both shocked and angry. Father! Blood gushed out of Jiang Yichuan's mouth, and his cheeks were pale. All the bones in his body had been broken by Lin Tianyi's kick. At this time, his whole body was in pain. Moreover, even with his Nirvana realm cultivation, he could not heal such injuries. His broken bones could not heal. Damn it! Who did this? Master Nanluo's eyes were burning with anger. Seeing his son injured to such an extent, his murderous intent grew even stronger. His emperor-level divine power surged towards Jiang Yichuan in an attempt to heal his injured body. However, his surging emperor-level divine power was completely useless after entering Jiang Yichuan's body. A thunderous force intertwined within Jiang Yichuan's body. The divine power he had poured into Jiang Yichuan's body was directly shattered by the thunderous force in Jiang Yichuan's body. This made the Master of the South Net even more shocked and angry. More divine power surged into Jiang Yichuan's body. However, it was still useless. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He walked toward Jiang Yichuan with calm steps. He had kicked Jiang Yichuan away. Jiang Yichuan was still alive. This was the result of him being merciful. Killing Jiang Yichuan with a simple blow was too easy for him. At the same time, the reason why Jiang Yichuan could not heal himself, and why the Emperor-level Master of the South Net could not help him was naturally because of him. When he kicked Jiang Yichuan's chest, a wisp of power from the 5 heaven-shaking lightning art surged into his body and sealed all his meridians. The divine power in Jiang Yichuan's body could no longer flow, and could not break through the power of the 5 heaven-shaking lightning art he had injected into his body. Therefore, Jiang Yichuan could not heal himself and the Master of the South Net could not help him. Their cultivation was not enough to shatter this kind of thunder power. Jiang Yichuan could only continue to endure the pain. Jiang Yichuan watched Lin Tian walk toward him and the fear in his eyes grew stronger. Father, help me. It's him. The person I mentioned to you before. His voice was weak and his expression was panicked. The Master of the South Net naturally understood Jiang Yichuan's words. When he looked at Lin Tian, his expression changed drastically. This was the young man Jiang Yichuan had mentioned to him before, the one who had taken away the rainbow divine light in the Crimson Fall wilderness, the one whose cultivation was at least in the Emperor realm? Now that he had broken into the treasure pavilion and attacked Jiang Yichuan like this, did he already know that Jiang Yichuan had betrayed the Zhou clan of the ancients in exchange for many treasures? His previous worries were now right in front of his eyes. The son's mistake has nothing to do with the father. Step aside, Lin Tian said to the Master of the South Net in a cold voice as he approached and looked down at Jiang Yichuan. What do you want to do to my son? The Master of the South Net gritted his teeth. What do I want to do to him? Not far away, Wishing Crocodile sneered. This son of a bitch. We saved his life and gave him precious medicine, but he repaid our kindness with enmity and betrayed us. What do you think we should do to him after doing such a thing? The killing intent in his words was very obvious. He obviously wanted to kill Jiang Yichuan. The Master of the South Net couldn't help but tremble. You, step aside, Lin Tian said. At the same time, a wave of divine power spread out and sent the Master of the South Net flying dozens of meters away with a bang. Master of the South Net! At this place, the South Net Treasure Pavilion disciples trembled in shock and fear. Their Master of the South Net Treasure Pavilion was at the Emperor level, but now, he was sent flying by someone's aura alone. What kind of cultivation did this person have to do to accomplish this? Jiang Yichuan's bones were shattered and blood gushed out of his mouth. At this time, he looked at Lin Tian and the fear in his eyes became even more intense. Brother Lin! I was wrong. I was possessed for a moment and made a mistake. You are a great person and don't remember the mistakes of a lowly person. Spare me. He trembled as he begged for mercy. Lin Tian looked down at Jiang Yichuan and pointed with his right hand. A wisp of golden light entered the other party's body and directly crippled his cultivation. Moreover, lightning power poured into the other party's body and crazily destroyed every inch of his flesh and meridians. Ah! Jiang Yichuan screamed. His cultivation was crippled and he was on the verge of despair. At the same time, because his cultivation was crippled, his ability to endure pain was reduced countless times. Under such circumstances, the pain of his bones being crushed and the pain of his flesh and meridians being slowly destroyed was simply an extremely intense torture. It caused his cheeks to distort in pain. Yichuan, the master of the South Net Treasure Pavilion's eyes were red as he madly pounced on Lin Tian. At the same time, the void rumbled and shook. 5 other figures rushed out from the depths of the South Net Treasure Pavilion. They were the 5 supreme elders of the South Net Treasure Pavilion, and were all at the celestial venerable level. They had received a report from their disciples that someone had broken into the South Net Treasure Pavilion and injured people, so they rushed here at this time. How dare you! When the 5 supreme elders saw Lin Tian attacking Jiang Yichuan and causing him to scream, they instantly knew that the person who had broken into their South Net Treasure Pavilion and injured people was Lin Tian. They all revealed cold killing intent and directly stepped toward Lin Tian. Get the F***ck out of here! Not far away, the wishing crocodile shouted coldly. The powerful demonic aura of an emperor level spread out like ripples in water. Suddenly, the master of the South Net Treasure Pavilion and the 5 supreme elders of the South Net Treasure Pavilion were all injured. They all vomited blood and were sent flying. Master! Supreme elders! At this place, the disciples of the South Net Treasure Pavilion were all shocked. Then, the disciples all looked at the wishing crocodile not far away in fear. Their bodies couldn't help but tremble. Emperor! Emperor-level demonic aura! It! These people's faces all turned pale. An emperor-level demonic aura was on the same level as the founder of the South Net Treasure Pavilion. The South Sifting clan had actually provoked a figure of this level. Ah! On the other side, Jiang Yichuan screamed in extreme pain. Lin Tian looked down at Jiang Yichuan. His eyes were cold and emotionless. A sword light appeared beside him and aimed at his opponent's head. The cold killing intent caused cracks to appear in the void. Jiang Yichuan, who was screaming in pain, was shocked by this killing intent. For a moment, he even forgot about the pain. He was terrified to the extreme, and a foul smell came from his crotch. Don't kill me! Yes. I know a treasure land. It's in a barren mountain 3 million miles away from here. There's an inconspicuous cave there. There's a true immortal's abode inside and countless immortal treasures. With your strength, you can definitely take out those immortal treasures. It really is an immortal abode. I beg you don't kill me. Chapter 1461. Jiang Yichuan was terrified to the extreme when he felt the murderous aura of Lin Tian's sword. Even if his cultivation was destroyed and all his bones were broken, he didn't want to die. He begged for mercy and told Lin Tian the biggest secret of the treasure pavilion as fast as he could. He only hoped that Lin Tian would spare him. He really didn't want to die and wanted to continue living. There are many immortal treasures there. There might even be a true immortal weapon. Our cultivation isn't enough, so we can't take them out. But with your cultivation, you can. This is the biggest secret of the treasure pavilion. I'll tell you everything. Take it as atonement for telling the Zhou family about you. Don't kill me, he begged. At this time, he felt regret. He regretted being blinded by greed, using Lin Tian to obtain the 7-colored divine light in the Crimson Fall Great Wastelands to inform the Zhou family. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fallen to this state. Evil creature! You! Inside the Nanluo Treasure Pavilion, several Nanluo Grand Elders who were sent flying by the 5 Elements Crocodile were originally frightened by the terrifying demonic power of the 5 Elements Crocodile, but when they heard Jiang Yichuan, and Lin Tiandao's words, they were all shocked and angry. The true Immortals' mansion was extraordinary. It was the hope of the treasure pavilion in the future. Although they couldn't take out the many immortal treasures in the Immortals' mansion now, they believed that they would be able to take out the treasures in the future when their cultivation became stronger. At that time, the treasure pavilion would be able to advance by leaps and bounds in a short period of time. At the very least, it would become an existence second only to the Zhou family of the ancients on the ancient star. They might even be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with them and become the sixth top inheritance in this world. Yet now, such a great secret had actually been leaked by Jiang Yichuan. This, our treasure pavilion has such a secret? The disciples of the treasure pavilion were all shocked. Not far away, Wishing Crocodile showed a strange expression and said to himself, "The Immortal's mansion of a true immortal, let my son go. Don't kill him. You're not allowed." Headmaster Nanluo stared unwaveringly at Lin Tian. Blood gushed out of his mouth. He was sent flying by the Wishing Crocodile, and also suffered a serious injury. Lin Tian's expression was cold. He didn't even look at leader Nanluo. His eyes only fell on Jiang Yichuan. Golden soaring heaven sword radiance intertwined with soaring cloud sword might around him. Don't kill me, I beg you. Really, I know I was wrong. I don't want to die. Jiang Yichuan trembled in fear. Lin Tian looked at Jiang Yichuan and didn't say a word. The Lin Tian sword beside him slashed straight at the other. He would not show any mercy to such a despicable person who repaid kindness with ingratitude. Pooh! The towering heaven sword gleam descended, and a bloody mist exploded. Jiang Yichuan was directly cut into a bloody mist. For a moment, apart from Lin Tian himself, Wishing Crocodile, and little Taichu, everyone trembled fiercely. No! Headmaster Nanluo's sorrowful howl resounded in all directions. You asked for it. In the distance, Wishing Crocodile looked at the place where Jiang Yichuan had exploded and said coldly. Lin Tian's expression didn't change. He looked at the place where Jiang Yichuan had exploded. A red gold sword fell to the ground, intertwined with faint divine light and covered with strange Dao patterns. It was an eternal weapon that Jiang Yichuan had obtained in exchange for taking away the seven-colored divine light and telling the Zhou clan. He waved his hand and took the red gold sword into his hand. He erased the other people's spiritual imprints on it, and then put it into his body. Let's go. He spoke and didn't make things difficult for the other people of this branch. He called out to Wishing Crocodile and little Taichu and walked out of the treasure pavilion of Nanluo. Wishing Crocodile and little Taichu followed beside him, and walked out. Ah! A roar sounded. Leader Nanluo's eyes were blood-red, and his face became ferocious. He stared at Lin Tian and said, Bastard! Bastard! You killed my son, and I will make you pay the price. I will make you a disgrace to the masses. With a boom, his glabella shone brightly. His emperor-level divine sense was vast and mighty, and he pulled out many spiritual imprints. The scene that Jiang Yichuan had shown him before of Lin Tian taking away the seven-colored divine light in the barren wilderness was pulled out. Each imprint clearly contained Lin Tian's appearance, and it was transmitted to other corners of the ancient star at lightning speed. At the same time, it was accompanied by his emperor-level divine sense. The immortal Tao divine light in the barren wilderness was taken by this person. He has a special way to control this divine light. If we capture and suppress him, we can get that special way to control the immortal Tao divine light. This divine sense imprint contained the voice of his divine sense, and it wasn't just one. There were at least tens of thousands of imprints. After being sent out by him, they turned into tens of thousands of streams of light and flew far away from the treasure pavilion of Nanluo in the blink of an eye, disappearing into the horizon. Lin Tian paused and stopped. He tilted his head and looked at leader Nanluo with cold killing intent rising in his eyes. Wishing Crocodile's voice was cold. Old dog! Leader Nanluo's cultivation wasn't strong, so it was impossible for him to spread his divine sense imprint across the entire ancient star. However, As long as the cultivators in a certain area knew about it, this matter would quickly spread across the entire ancient star. This was because the seven-colored divine light involved was too extraordinary. It was a sacred object that everyone on the ancient star dreamed of obtaining. Even peak Eternal Realm experts would be jealous of it. Later, it was easy to imagine that on this ancient star, not only the Zhou family would look for Lin Tian, but other top forces and rogue cultivators would also pounce on Lin Tian. Leader Nan Luo laughed wildly and stared at Lin Tian with a ferocious face. His eyes were bloodshot. "Beast! Just you wait! You won't have an easy time killing my flesh and blood! After this, not only the Zhou clan, but the entire Tonghun ancient star will target you. Each of the top forces and the old monsters will find you and deal with you. Take your time and enjoy it." Looking at Lin Tian's wild laughter, he was almost crazy, like a ghost. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He directly waved his hand and slashed out a sword light. With a puff, Leader Nan Luo's body and soul were destroyed. Sect leader! The group of Nan Luo's disciples trembled. Even the several grand elders of this branch trembled, and a chill rose in their internal organs. It was also at this moment that a vast pressure spread out from Lin Tian's body. His immortal level cultivation base was fully displayed. Terrifying divine power spread out in all directions and instantly enveloped the entire treasure pavilion, causing everyone in the pavilion to tremble even more violently. No, the peak of the immortal realm? All of the southern treasure pavilion disciples stared at Lin Tian in fear, trembling in fear. No matter what, they had never thought that the person who had intruded into their sect would be so powerful. He was even more powerful than the founder of their sect. The several Empyrean-level grand elders of this bloodline were also shocked, trembling under Lin Tian's immortal rank pressure. They were alarmed by Lin Tian's terror, but also angry at Jiang Yichuan and his son's stupidity, actually provoking such a terrifying person. Boom! The immortal realm divine power rolled and rippled out from Lin Tian's body. The next moment, thunder rumbled, and the entire sky above the treasure pavilion turned dark. Silver divine thunder brewed in the sky as if a destructive heavenly tribulation was about to descend. The treasure pavilion doesn't need to exist anymore. If you don't want to die, leave. I'll give you 10 breaths of time. Lin Tian opened his mouth, his voice cold. After being betrayed by Jiang Yichuan, he had only come to the southern gathering treasure pavilion with the intention of making Jiang Yichuan pay the price he deserved. He had never thought of making things difficult for anyone else. Yet now, the headmaster of the Southern Gathering Treasure Pavilion had done such a thing. This undoubtedly made him even more furious. At this time, there was nothing to say. He wanted to completely destroy the Treasure Pavilion. Boom! Thunder and lightning intertwined in the sky, and the vast power of thunder suppressed the world. That aura seemed to be able to destroy everything in the world. Lin Tian stood in the treasure pavilion like an immortal god of thunder. All the disciples of the treasure pavilion trembled. A sense of fear rose in all of them, and even their divine souls trembled because of it. Let's go! We'll leave immediately! Someone said in a trembling voice and quickly rushed out of the treasure pavilion. At the same time, the other disciples of the treasure pavilion began to move as well. Without any hesitation, they all rushed out of the treasure pavilion. Their speed was pushed to the limit, causing rumbling sounds to resound in the air. At this time, the immortal realm Lin Tian opened his mouth and said that the treasure pavilion didn't need to exist anymore. The disciples of the treasure pavilion naturally knew that Lin Tian wanted to destroy the treasure pavilion. Those who didn't want to leave and wanted to stay would undoubtedly become Lin Tian's target. Therefore, how could these people dare to stay? They didn't even need to think before they flew out. This was because Lin Tian was at the immortal realm. Even if the founder of the treasure pavilion came back to life, he would only be suppressed and killed by such a person. What could they do? If they stayed, they would only die in vain. It would be meaningless. Therefore, how could these people stay? At this time, all of them rushed out of the treasure pavilion. Then, as the lightning in the sky became even more violent, even the heavenly venerate supreme elders of this branch moved. They all rushed out of the South Gathering Treasure Pavilion because they knew that there was only one way out. That damned father and son! They were furious. If they could do it, they would have dragged Jiang Yichuan and his son out of hell and killed them with their own hands. Because they had provoked Lin Tian, the Southern Treasure Pavilion, which had been passed down for so long, was about to be destroyed. Whoosh! 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 The sound of breaking air rang out. In just 7 breaths, the Grand Supreme Elders of the Treasure Pavilion and the other disciples of the Treasure Pavilion all rushed out of the Treasure Pavilion. They didn't dare to stay, fearing that Lin Tian would change his mind and attack them. They all ran as fast as they could and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Whooshing Crocodile looked at these people running away and snorted coldly. At the same time, Lin Tian's expression was cold. He activated the 5 Thunder Sky Shaking Art. The vast and mighty silver lightning in the sky instantly fell down like countless silver dragons from the immortal realm, directly enveloping the entire treasure pavilion. Boom! Chapter 1462. The 5 heaven-shaking thunders incantation was extremely strong and domineering. Lin Tian used this unparalleled divine technique to destroy the entire treasure pavilion in the blink of an eye. Only clouds of smoke and dust floated in the air, and wisps of electric arcs flashed. Let's go! Lin Tian called out to Whooshing Crocodile and Little Taichu, and stepped out of the ruined treasure pavilion. Although destroying this place relieves some of my anger, I can't change what has already happened. I'm afraid it will be a little bad next, Whooshing Crocodile said. Jiang Yichuan originally only told the Zhou family that Lin Tian had taken the 7-colored divine light. They only needed to be wary of the Zhou family. But now, Jiang Yichuan's father had spread this news through the spiritual imprint. It wouldn't be long before the entire Tongheng Ancient Star knew about it. At that time, all the top inheritances and rogue cultivators would find Lin Tian to deal with Lin Tian to seize the divine light. Trouble would come in waves. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. Don't think too much about it. Lin Tian was very calm. He could naturally think of what Whooshing Crocodile could think of. However, apart from being a little angry when Jiang Yichuan's father just spread this news to the entire Tongheng Ancient Star, he didn't care at this time. It was useless to care. I knew you would say that. Whooshing Crocodile curled its lips and said, Then, what are we going to do now? Or go to the Jiang family to find Jiang Yua? We're not in a hurry. We'll go later, Lin Tian said. Let's go to the Immortal's immortal abode mentioned by Jiang Yichuan first. Whooshing Crocodile's eyes lit up. It remembered the big secret of the treasure pavilion that Jiang Yichuan had revealed to Lin Tian in order to save his life. He said that there was a cultivation immortal's abode in a barren mountain 300 miles away from this place. I can see that bastard didn't lie. There should be an immortal's abode there, and there should be a lot of immortal treasures, it said. Previously, when Lin Tian had wanted to kill Jiang Yichuan had spilled the beans in hopes that Lin Tian would let him go. He wouldn't have made up such a thing at that time. Just by looking at his pleading eyes, it didn't seem like he was lying. Moreover, judging from the furious attitude of the Grand Elders of the South Gathering Treasure Pavilion at that time, it was enough to prove that Jiang Yichuan's words were true. Lin Tian nodded. Let's go. At that moment, 1 person and 2 beasts flew into the air and headed in the specific direction that Jiang Yichuan had mentioned. Tongheng Ancient Star was in an uproar. Jiang Yichuan's father used his divine sense to spread the news that Lin Tian took the 7-colored divine light from the depths of the Crimson Fall Wasteland. At first, only the cultivators in the areas close to the South Gathering Treasure Pavilion knew about it. Soon, this news caused a commotion. In the blink of an eye, like a plague, it spread to every corner of the Tongheng Ancient Star at a terrifying speed. In an extremely short period of time, everyone on the Tongheng Ancient Star knew about it. Someone actually took the divine light of the immortal path from the depths of the Crimson Fall Wasteland? Back then, the strongest cultivators of the 5 top forces went there with perfect immortal artifacts, but they all returned empty-handed. This person, Does he really have a special method to control that divine light? As long as he has this method, anyone can control that divine light? All the cultivators were shocked. The big shots of the Tongheng Immortal sect, the heaven-severing divine sect, and the Wu family of the ancients were all shocked. Find him! Bring him back! On this day, the big shots of several big forces were shouting almost the same thing in their respective inheritances. In the Zhou family of the ancients, the patriarch of the Zhou family and several other elders of the immortal realm were waiting for their patriarch to come out of seclusion and deal with Lin Tian. They wanted to suppress Lin Tian and bring him back to obtain the secret of the seven-colored divine light. Then they would be able to control the divine light of the immortal path that contained all possibilities. Naturally, they were all shocked and furious when they heard the news. "Bastard!" an elder roared. Because Jiang Yichuan had come to inform them, they had thoroughly investigated Jiang Yichuan's background. They knew that the divine sense imprint that had been sent out before was done by Jiang Yichuan's father. At this time, they were furious and their faces were full of killing intent. Jiang Yichuan had used. Lin Tian took the seven-colored divine light from the Crimson Fall wasteland as a bargaining chip to exchange for an eternal weapon and many bowed and divine medicines from the Zhou family. Therefore, this matter should only be known by the Zhou family. They had warned Jiang Yichuan before that if this matter was leaked to others, they would make the treasure pavilion disappear from the Tongheng Star. But now, Jiang Yichuan did not do what they warned him and told this matter to his father. Then, his father spread this matter to the entire Tongheng Star, causing everyone to know about it. After this, the Zhou family wanted to get the divine light of the immortal path from Lin Tian. Even if the patriarch of the eternal realm came out of seclusion, he would still have to compete with several other big forces. "Go to the treasure pavilion! Destroy it!" an elder roared. The important figures of this branch were all furious to the extreme, each and every one of them seething with killing intent. "No need!" The patriarch of this branch growled, his eyes full of anger and his face extremely gloomy. "The treasure pavilion has been destroyed. There's no need to go." The other big shots of the Zhou family did not understand why the patriarch of the Zhou family said this at first, but in the next moment, they understood. Jiang Yichuan's father would not spread this matter for no reason. "It's impossible that he is not afraid of our family. When the three supreme elders of our family died, the person who obtained the seven-colored divine light knew that Jiang Yichuan had told him about it. Then, he personally went to the treasure pavilion and killed Jiang Yichuan. Then, Jiang Yichuan's father exposed this matter to the world without any scruples. He wanted to make the person who took the seven-colored divine light a public embarrassment." One of them gritted his teeth and analyzed. "And with the personality of the person who took the seven-colored divine light, he dared to kill the three supreme elders of our family and went to the treasure pavilion in person. He must be very strong and cold." First, Jiang Yichuan told on him, and then Jiang Yichuan's father spread this matter to the world. Needless to say, he must be very angry. After Jiang Yichuan's father spread those divine consciousness imprints, the treasure pavilion will be destroyed. Damn it! The big shots of this family were enraged to the extreme. At the same time, near a vast river on ancient Tongheng Star, within the desolate Jiang family, Jiang Luoluo was shocked when she learned that Lin Tian had taken the seven-colored divine light from the Crimson Fall Great Desolate. She already knew that Lin Tian could easily take away the seven-colored divine light from the Crimson Fall Great Desolate. This was because she had seen Lin Tian obtain a similar divine light from the Purple Spill planet. She also knew that this thing was extremely important to Lin Tian. Thus, after she returned to her family, she didn't mention this matter to the Jiang family old ancestor who loved her the most. When the Jiang family old ancestor and the others asked her where Lin Tian had gone to do what he had done, she didn't mention a single word. Even though she knew that her elders weren't vile characters who would steal someone else's achievements, she still knew that the seven-colored divine light was no trifling matter. She didn't want to cause any trouble for Lin Tian. She had been so careful that she had even hidden this matter from her family, not mentioning it at all. But now, someone had spread out this matter through divine sense imprints, and exposed it to the world, causing everyone to know about it. This caused her to be abnormally angry. She knew very well that once this matter was exposed, it was bound to bring great trouble to Lin Tian. Many great forces and powerful rogue cultivators in this world would rush towards Lin Tian because of the seven-colored divine light. She walked out of her room and found the Jiang family old ancestor, who was her great-grandfather, and the Jiang family head, who was her father, as well as other big shots of the Jiang family. She asked them to go out of the family to find Lin Tian and bring him back to the Jiang family for protection. After all, although Lin Tian was very powerful and had a genuine immortal weapon, if the old ancestors of the other great forces came out, they would absolutely not be able to resist him. This was because the old ancestors of the other great forces, like her great-grandfather, were at the peak of the eternal realm. No matter how monstrous Lin Tian was, it was impossible for him to compete with the experts at the peak of the eternal realm with the cultivation of the immortal realm. Once he was found by the old ancestors of the several great forces, the ending would be extremely bad, and there would be no good result. At this time, she could only ask for help from her great-grandfather. At the same time, she also told the old ancestors of the Jiang family and others that she knew that Lin Tian could easily take away the seven-colored divine light in the red fallen wilderness, and that Lin Tian went to get the seven-colored divine light after leaving the Jiang family. At this time, with the news that Lin Tian took away the seven-colored divine light exposed to the world, there was no need for her to hide it. "I'm sorry, great-grandfather, I'm sorry, father. Luo didn't mean to deceive you, but that thing is really important to him," she apologized. Before Jiang Luo found them, the old ancestors of the Jiang family, and others had already learned that Lin Tian took the seven-colored divine light in the red fallen wilderness, from the divine sense imprints sent by Jiang Yichuan's father. They were very surprised. At this time, when they heard Jiang Luo mention that she knew that Lin Tian could take away the seven-colored divine light and that Lin Tian went to the red fallen wilderness to get the seven-colored divine light and deliberately hid it from them, they couldn't help but be stunned. However, soon, the big shots of this branch couldn't help but laugh, and they were a little embarrassed. "Silly girl, your great-grandfather, your father, and your elders, are they the kind of ungrateful people who bite the hand that feeds them? Not to mention that young man saved you and escorted you all the way back to the family, even if he is a complete stranger, as long as he can get the divine light with his own ability, we won't make things difficult for him. You are actually worried that we will be disloyal." The old ancestor of the Jiang family smiled bitterly, and then said, "However, thinking about your friends and benefactors, you don't lose your principles. This is one of the reasons why great-grandfather, your father, and these elders like you the most." "I'm sorry, great-grandfather." Jiang Luo apologized again, and then said anxiously, "Then, now, don't worry, great-grandfather will personally go find him, and I will definitely bring him back to you in one piece." The old ancestor of the Jiang family comforted her. The entire ancient Tongheng star was in an uproar, and all the cultivators were talking about Lin Tian took the seven-colored divine light in the depths of the red fallen wilderness. Countless people were shocked by this and were very concerned about it. Lin Tian more or less knew about these matters, but he appeared to be very calm. At this time, together with Wishing Crocodile and Little Tai Chu, he followed Jiang Yichuan's words before his death, and arrived in front of a cave in a barren mountain. As far as the eye could see, this cave was roughly circular, and was very unremarkable. Its diameter was around 1 zhang, and there were many weeds growing on the outside. The inside was rather dim, and no one knew where it led to. Wishing Crocodile sized it up and said, "This is the cave that Bastard mentioned, the one with the true immortal's immortal abode? This should be it, it matches Jiang Yichuan's words completely." Chapter 1463. The cave was circular in shape, with a diameter of about 10 feet. Lin Tian and the others came out of the cave. There were dense weeds growing outside the cave. It looked inconspicuous, and no one would think that there was anything special about it. If Lin Tian and the others hadn't heard from Jiang Yichuan that there was a true immortal's immortal abode inside, they wouldn't have taken a second look at it. Let's go. Lin Tian now. The man and the two beasts walked into the cave. The space inside the cave was dim, but it didn't affect their vision. They walked into the cave and quickly sensed wisps of true immortal's aura and immortal Tao waves. True immortal's aura and immortal Tao law waves! Wishing Crocodile's eyes lit up. That little bastard Jiang didn't lie. Although it had guessed that Jiang Yichuan wasn't lying about the true immortal's immortal abode, when it came here and sensed the true immortal's aura and immortal Tao waves in the cave, it was truly convinced. Lin Tian nodded slightly. Sensing the true immortal's aura and immortal Tao waves, a faint light flashed in his eyes. He paused for a moment, then led Wishing Crocodile and little Taichu into the cave. Soon, they walked along the entrance of the cave for about 30 meters. At this moment, an oppressive aura suddenly appeared in the air. Ripples spread out on the ground like water, and the space was distorted. A tiny vortex formed on the ground. Its aura was oppressive, as if it was going to swallow everything. This is... Wishing Crocodile's expression changed. It was already at the Emperor realm, but when it saw the sudden appearance of the vortex, it actually felt that its life was in danger. At the same time, little Taichu also widened its eyes. They were all being pulled into the vortex by a powerful suction force. The vortex seemed to want to swallow everything. Lin Tian was also slightly moved. He could see that the vortex was a kind of earth pulse killing trap. Even an ordinary peak immortal realm expert wouldn't be able to resist it. However, his expression only changed for a moment. In the next moment, he regained his composure and lightly stepped on the ground with his right leg. Immediately, strands of dragon patterns rippled out. The dragon tattoos intertwined with a faint glow and entered the ground. Soon, the spatial whirlpool in front trembled. After which, it became faint and slowly disappeared. With his current cultivation and the dragon burial scripture, it wasn't difficult for him to unravel such a situation. No wonder the people of the Nanluo Treasure Pavilion couldn't enter even though they found this place. With such a thing here, almost no one below the Eternal Realm can pass through. Wishing Crocodile said. Lin Tian nodded. He walked at the front and continued to step into the cave. He used the dragon patterns to explore the way, and discovered that this place was crisscrossed with all kinds of complicated and dangerous earth vein patterns. There were many places where killing forces and traps were hidden, and it was extremely terrifying. However, this was comparatively easier for him now. All along the way, he utilized the dragon burial scripture to break through numerous lethal traps, and it didn't take long for him to travel far away. Clang! 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 The clanging sound of swords rang in the air. Tao runes manifested, condensing the air into killing lights, which were fierce and oppressive. This killing array can kill at least an early-stage Eternal Realm expert. Lin Tian was moved. Wishing Crocodile and little Taichu also showed a look of surprise. Facing these killing lights, a very dangerous feeling rose in their hearts. Whoosh! 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 The fierce killing lights pierced through the void, directly piercing towards Lin Tian and the others. Kid, can you handle it? Wishing Crocodile asked Lin Tian now. In the face of such a level of killing light, it and little Taichu were powerless. Lin Tian nodded. He activated the Heavenly One's soul secret art. Wisps of soul energy turned into special runes and spread out, intertwining with the void here. In the blink of an eye, they linked with the runes that existed in this place, and quickly dissolved them. After that, the killing light that was chopping over instantly became countless times weaker, and was shattered by a single slap from Lin Tian. Then, he continued to attack, combining the Heavenly One Soul's secret art with the 5 heaven-shaking thunders to evolve the Thunder Dragon halberd. He threw it straight ahead, destroying all the killing runes in front of him in an instant. Let's go, he said, continuing to lead Wishing Crocodile and little Taichu into the cave. They didn't know how deep this cave was. They went all the way into the depths. As they moved forward, they soon encountered all kinds of dangers, but they were all easily solved by Lin Tian. It's a little strange. Is this really the cultivation cave of a genuine immortal? Wishing Crocodile showed a puzzled expression and said, The means set up by a genuine immortal can't be so fragile, right? From the outside of the cave all the way to this place, they encountered many runes, but they were all easily solved by Lin Tian, which made it a little puzzled. It knew that Lin Tian was very powerful, and he had mastered many special means. Even so, if it was really set up by a genuine immortal, it shouldn't be so easy to break it. Lin Tian nodded and said, "It is indeed a little strange." He had mastered many techniques and they were all extraordinary. However, with his current cultivation, it would be extremely difficult for him to break the Dao pattern killing formation left behind by a true immortal expert. He might not even succeed. But now, it was a little too easy. All the Dao pattern formation seals that he encountered along the way were easily broken by him. This was somewhat illogical. Could it be that these runes were casually set up by the genuine immortal and didn't carve them seriously, so they could be broken so easily? Whooshing Crocodile guessed. It's possible, but there could also be other reasons. Lin Tian now. He didn't dwell too much on this issue. He called Whooshing Crocodile and Little Taichu to continue walking into the cave. Soon, as they moved forward, the diameter of the cave became larger and wider. Then, rays of light appeared in front of them. A door that looked like a light pattern appeared in front of them. It was like a portal to space and time. There is a light door here. Whooshing Crocodile's eyes lit up. Is the genuine immortal's immortal abode behind this? We'll know when we go in. Lin Tian now. He didn't feel any danger when he came here. After a pause, he led Whooshing Crocodile and Little Taichu directly into the light door. In an instant, a faint light flashed in front of them. As if they had passed through some kind of barrier, they disappeared from the cave and appeared in another space. As far as the eye could see, towering mountains appeared in their field of vision. Ancient trees covered the ground, and there was even a vast river flowing in the distance. It felt like a real small world. There was the aura of a genuine immortal floating in the air. It was at least tens of thousands of times stronger than the aura of the immortal path outside the cave. A man-made small space. This is definitely the genuine immortal's immortal abode that Jiang Ichuan mentioned. Whooshing Crocodile's eyes lit up even more. Before entering the light door, it guessed that the genuine immortal's immortal abode should be behind the light door. Now that it had entered and looked at the scene in front of it, it was completely certain. This should be it. Lin Tian now nodded. A light flashed in his eyes. He spread out his powerful immortal divine thought and stared at the east of this space. The aura of a genuine immortal and the fluctuation of the immortal path were the strongest there. Immediately, he called out to Whooshing Crocodile and Little Taichu, and they headed towards the east at a very fast speed. Soon, the group walked for tens of thousands of feet. There was a palace in front of them. The palace wasn't very big. It was made of dark gold stone, and there was a very strong aura of a genuine immortal coming from inside. This is the place. When they arrived at this place, the group didn't hesitate. They immediately pushed open the door of the palace and walked into the palace. There were many stone pillars in the palace. Each pillar was inlaid with a huge luminous pearl. Therefore, the space inside was not dark at all. At the same time, the structure of the palace was very simple. There was only one path that led straight into the depths. Lin Tianyi and the others were very careful. They followed this path and soon arrived at the end of the path. At the end of the path, a door appeared in front of the group. Because there was no dangerous aura around, Lin Tianyi directly pushed open the door and led Whooshing Crocodile and Little Taichu into the center of the palace. Then, they were all shocked. The space behind the door was very large. There were many bowed and treasured weapons and treasured herbs. There was a very strong fragrance of pills and herbs floating in the air. Just by smelling it, the group felt that all the pores on their bodies had opened up. That's Immortal Ean Plant, Star Thunder Flower, Emperor Grass. Whooshing Crocodile's eyes lit up. They can all increase the cultivation of Emperor Sky Realm experts. It stared at the many immortal herbs in the palace. Although a lot of essence chi had been lost, it was still very amazing. Moreover, there were many of these treasured herbs. They were very useful to both Wishing Crocodile and Little Tai Chu. Dalio Dragon Gold Pill! Lin Tiany's eyes fell on a small transparent jade bottle. There were 2 thumb-sized Baodan pills in it. There were various patterns and seals on them. It was exactly the same as the description of the Dalio Dragon Gold Pill he saw in an ancient book on the Xian planet. It could be directly used to strengthen the cultivation of experts above the immortal realm without any side effects. His eyes shone brightly. With these 2 Dalio Dragon Gold Pills, he could definitely step into the half-step eternal realm in a short time. "Put it away!" he said. "Little guy, put it away. Move it! With these, we can directly reach the half-step immortal realm." Wishing Crocodile was quite excited and called out to Little Tai Chu. Immediately, 1 man and 2 beasts took action at the same time. Lin Tiany took the Dalio Dragon Gold Pill, while Wishing Crocodile and Little Tai Chu each took a part of the immortal Yin plant, Star Thunder Flower, and Emperor Grass. As for the treasured weapons, they were not very amazing. The strongest one was only at the peak soul treasure level. Lin Tiany waved his hand and took all of them into his body. At the same time, he also took some of the other ancient books and treasured weapon refining materials. Although these things were useless to him now, they were valuable. "That son of a bitch," Jiang Yichuan, said a very wonderful place before he died. Wishing Crocodile laughed. With the help of the Baodan herbs, they could improve their cultivation by a large margin in a short time. This could be said to be an amazing harvest. Indeed. Lin Tiany nodded and couldn't help but laugh. Little Tai Chu suddenly pulled Lin Tiany's hair, stretched out its little paw, and pointed deeper into the hall. Lin Tiany looked in the direction of Little Tai Chu's paw. There stood a stone door, which was covered with various ancient runes. Chapter 1464. The stone door was located in the innermost part of the main hall. It was 10 feet high and 20 feet wide. It was engraved with various bird and beast patterns and mystical Tao patterns. Lin Tian looked at it and released his immortal-level divine sense. However, his divine sense couldn't penetrate the stone door. He couldn't perceive what was inside. The only thing he could feel was that the true immortal aura and immortal Tao fluctuations were the strongest around the stone door. He paused for a moment and called 5 Elements Crocodile and Little Tai Chu over to the stone door. He placed both of his hands on the stone door and activated the Sun Heart Sutra. He executed the 5 Thunder Heaven Shock Art at the same time. The 2 different powers gathered together to break the Tao patterns on the stone door. Soon, dozens of breaths passed. He annihilated the Tao patterns on the stone door with his powerful strength. The true immortal Qi and immortal Tao fluctuations here are very strong. I don't know what's inside. Be careful, he said to Wishing Crocodile and Little Tai Chu. Then, he pushed the stone door open with both hands. Boom! As the stone door was pushed open, a terrible storm immediately swept out from it. It was mixed with an extremely strong true immortal aura and immortal Tao law. It was like a Ruoxian Qi torrent. It was very shocking. Because Lin Tian had warned them to be careful before, Wishing Crocodile and Little Tai Chu were very cautious. Lin Tian himself was also on guard against all kinds of changes. At this time, when they felt the torrent of true immortal Qi rushing towards them, they were all shocked. Then, they immediately moved horizontally, moving more than 10 feet away from the stone door. Qi! 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 The torrent of true immortal Qi rushed out of the stone room. Wherever it passed, the void was directly annihilated and turned into a large area of chaos. It took a long time for the void to recover. The group couldn't help but feel shocked. Fortunately, we escaped in time. If we were hit by this aura, even an early-stage eternal cultivator wouldn't be able to withstand it. Wishing Crocodile had a lingering fear. Little Tai Chu also shrunk his neck, looking very cute. Lin Tian's expression also changed a little. However, he quickly calmed down and temporarily paused outside the stone room. Only when he was certain that there were no more dangerous things charging out of the stone room did he call out to the 5 Element Crocodile and little Tai Chu before walking towards the stone door. He walked at the front and quickly entered the stone room. As far as the eye could see, the stone room was relatively spacious. The space was not dim at all, and there were many blue moonstones embedded in it. They emitted a very gentle light. As the group walked in, they suddenly felt a very huge pressure. It was as if there were two huge rocks weighing millions of kilograms on their shoulders. Their chests involuntarily became a little stifled. The man and the two beasts were shocked. Their gazes shifted to the innermost part of the stone chamber, and they couldn't help but be moved. That is? In the depths of the stone chamber, there was a white jade bed, and a figure was sitting cross-legged on it. There was no sign of life, and his entire body was withered beyond recognition. It was almost like a human skin bag wrapped around a skeleton. However, such a withered corpse exuded a very strong genuine immortal aura and the law of immortal Tao. Then, Lin Tian and the others found that the pressure and stifling force they felt when they walked into the stone room originated from this withered corpse. A genuine immortal's corpse? Wishing Crocodile was shocked. It should be. Lin Tian nodded. A half-step true immortal could also exude genuine immortal qi and immortal Tao fluctuations, but they were very weak and far from being comparable to this withered corpse. If the genuine immortal aura and immortal Tao fluctuations emitted by a half-step true immortal were compared to a drop of water, then the genuine immortal aura and immortal Tao fluctuations emitted by this withered corpse were undoubtedly a vast ocean. He looked at the withered corpse and paused for a while. Then, he beckoned the wishing crocodile and the little Taichu to come closer to the withered corpse. Soon, they arrived in front of the withered corpse. The pressure and stifling force from before became even stronger, causing the man and the two beasts to have difficulty breathing. Why is there a genuine immortal's withered corpse sitting cross-legged here? Wishing Crocodile was puzzled. Then, it seemed to have thought of something and said, "Could it be the owner of this genuine immortal's immortal abode? From the looks of it, that should be it." Lin Tian Andao. This stone chamber was the place where the owner of this genuine immortal's immortal abode cultivated in seclusion, and the white jade bed was the platform for cultivation. Since the withered corpse was sitting cross-legged on the bed, it was unlikely that it was not the owner of this genuine immortal's immortal abode. But why did he die in his own seclusion place? It seems like he died in the middle of cultivation. Wishing Crocodile was puzzled. Lin Tian raised his hand and placed it on the withered corpse of the genuine immortal. The divine power in his body moved slightly and entered a wisp into the withered corpse. Soon, he sensed a wisp of dim divine power in the withered corpse of the genuine immortal. It was very weak, but it was extremely chaotic. Moreover, it carried an extremely violent aura. It was like a ferocious beast that was buried in the withered corpse. At the same time, this weak divine power was mixed with wisps of immortal Tao nomological fluctuations. It was very pure, but not very stable. It felt similar to the instability of immortal Tao nomological laws when a half-step great Tao expert had just broken through to the great Tao realm. This is... A strange light flashed across his eyes. He was slightly surprised. "What's wrong? Did you find something?" Wishing Crocodile asked. Little Taichu also tilted its little head and looked curiously at Lin Tian. Lin Tian now said, "There is a very weak remnant of violent divine power in its body. It is mixed with pure immortal Tao fluctuations, but it is not very stable. All in all, it seems like an accident occurred when it was breaking through to the true immortal realm. Although it entered the true immortal realm, its divine power became violent and uncontrollable at that time. Then, its spirit was probably destroyed by the violent divine power and died tragically. Its flesh and blood were also damaged, resulting in its current withered appearance." One of the key points for an eternal realm expert to step into the true immortal realm was to comprehend and control an immortal Tao nomological law that surpassed the ordinary great Tao. When an eternal realm expert just stepped into the true immortal realm, the immortal Tao nomological law that he controlled would not be very stable. It would take time to completely stabilize it. Now, the remnant divine power in the withered corpse was chaotic and violent, and there was a pure but unstable immortal Tao nomological law. There were no external injuries on the body, so he guessed that the withered corpse must have had an accident after breaking through to the true immortal realm in this place, resulting in its tragic death. It was also because of this that the true immortal aura and immortal Tao fluctuations on its body could uncontrollably leak out of this stone cultivation room, into the small world outside, and then into the cave behind the light door. At the same time, this could also explain why the Tao patterns and array seals they encountered when they passed through the cave were not very scary. He could easily break them. Thinking about it, they must have been engraved when the owner of this immortal mansion was still in the eternal realm. With his current cultivation and skills, it was not difficult to break the Tao patterns and array seals set up by the owner of this immortal mansion. Wishing Crocodile was moved. When it heard Lin Tian's words, it could not help but widen its eyes. Then, it thought seriously and felt that Lin Tian's guess should be what really happened back then. It looked at the withered corpse on the jade bed and opened its mouth, feeling embarrassed for the withered corpse. Isn't this too unlucky? The path of cultivation is bumpy and difficult. There are too many accidents. This is nothing. Lin Tian now. He looked at the withered corpse of a true immortal. After a pause, he propped up his origin small world and stored it inside. Why are you storing this corpse? The flesh and blood essence of this corpse is almost gone. It doesn't seem to be useful to refine it with the saint refining art. Wishing Crocodile was curious. It has other uses. Lin Tian now. The flesh and blood essence of this corpse had been completely drained. Almost only the skeleton was left. Even so, this was a genuine corpse of a true immortal. The physical strength it contained was terrifying. If he used his spirit to control this true immortal corpse, he could easily destroy any cultivator below the true immortal realm. He briefly explained his idea to Wishing Crocodile. Wishing Crocodile's eyes lit up. Not bad. That's a good idea. Then it said, so, what do we do now? Didn't we get a lot of Baoden here? Let's refine them first, and then leave. Lin Tian now. Wishing Crocodile nodded. Lord Crocodile thinks so too. Lin Tian took out 2 Dalio Dragon Golden Pills. Wishing Crocodile and Little Tai Shu took out the Immortal Ean Plant, Star Thunder Flower, and other precious herbs. They started to refine them in this place. Suddenly, a dazzling divine light spread out from the bodies of the man and the 2 beasts. Their essence, chi, spirit, and cultivation improved rapidly. In the blink of an eye, 7 days passed. On this day, a strong force rushed out of Lin Tian's body. He had only refined half of the first Dalio Dragon Golden Pill, but his cultivation had already reached the peak of the immortal realm. This was because he was only 1 step away from the peak of the immortal realm. Continue. Lin Tian muttered to himself. He ran the Sun Heart Sutra. At this time, he did not stop to consolidate his cultivation at the peak of the immortal realm. Instead, he continued to refine the Dalio Dragon Golden Pill that he had swallowed. The golden divine light emitted from his body became more intense, and his essence, chi, spirit, and spirit became stronger. At the same time, the demonic light and 6-colored divine light on Wishing Crocodile and Little Tai Shu became stronger and stronger. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. On this day, 2 powerful divine powers spread out. Little Tai Shu and Wishing Crocodile stopped cultivating. After refining enough divine herbs, their cultivation had reached the half-step immortal realm. Wishing Crocodile was a little excited. It did not calm down until dozens of breaths. Together with Little Tai Shu, it looked at Lin Tian, who was still refining the Dalio Dragon Golden Pill, and said, "We're waiting for this kid." On the Eternal Star, the cultivation world was still in an uproar. Many cultivators were discussing the matter of Lin Tian taking away the 7-colored divine radiance from the Crimson Fall Wasteland. Many cultivators were extremely concerned about this matter because that divine radiance was too extraordinary. At the same time, the heaven-severing divine sect, the Wu family of the primordial era, the immortal school of the Tongheng Immortal School, and other great powers had all sent out super experts to search for traces of Lin Tian in the entire Tongheng star. However, a month had passed, and none of them had found Lin Tian. Continue to search. We must find him even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground. An expert said this. In the immortal abode of a perfected immortal, Lin Tian sat cross-legged in a corner of the stone room, running the Sun Heart Sutra to refine the Daluo Dragon Golden Pill. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. At this time, the golden divine light outside his body became thicker, and his essence, qi, and spirit became stronger. In 3 days at most, I will break into the half-step eternal realm. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.